Cuddy and 24-year-old Rick Large. The Irwins say they hired the defendants to look after their house, and instead, they threw a party. TJ has a separate lawsuit against the Irwins for the return of a down payment on a bike.
Order. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 572 and 560. One is Irwin versus Cuddy Large, and the other one is a cross complaint, Cuddy versus Irwin. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Mr. and Mrs. Irwin, I'm going to address your claim first, and then I will address the claim by one of the defendants, Mr. Cuddy. According to your complaint, you hired these two young men to do some work in your house while you were gone on some sort of vacation or business trip. And they were given a whole list of things to do. They had access to your home. And it is your claim that they threw a major party while they were there, and that as a result of that, your home was invaded, a large group of people, that some things were destroyed or damaged, and a substantial amount of money stolen. And you're suing both of these young men for $5,000.
Correct.
The defendant said it was no big deal party, just a few friends, nobody went into the house. And Mr. Cuddy has a cross complaint, which I will get to in a moment. Who's Mr. Cuddy?
Would be me, Your
That's
Honor.
you. All right, how did you know these two young men?
Rick Large had worked for us, done some work for our business for about a year.
What kind of business?
A computer business. And Mr. Cuddy, my husband had known him for probably about 12 years, and I'd known him about 6 years. And he was also a neighbor of ours.
And you gave both these young men access to your home?
Actually, Rick Large was the one that was hired to come in and feed the dogs, check emails, pick up mail, pick up the newspaper, and do a few chores around the house, and we paid him $300 for the week to do that.
You only paid Mr. Large?
Correct.
Okay, were they supposed to stay in the house?
No.
Okay, and what did you find when you came home?
When we first they came to pick us up at the airport, and they were supposed to come in our truck, but they came in Mr. Cuddy's mother's truck because they said they couldn't find the keys to the vehicle, which also has our home key on it and a speed pass. When we got home, we gave them T-shirts we'd bought for them, and they left, and we were home for a few minutes, and our doorbell rang, and our neighbor came over and was very upset and said that while we were gone...
Can't tell me what your neighbor said.
Oh, okay. Well, we started looking around and noticed things that were moved, found a disc jockey card on my table in my family room, found broken beer bottle and beer still on the floor in the family room.
A broken beer bottle?
Mm-hmm. We went to open our garbage compactor, and it was jammed. When we finally were able to pry it open, there was the remains of grapefruit rinds, a big vodka bottle that had been jammed in there. When we went upstairs that night to go to bed, we could tell that our guest room and our room both had been remade. The bedding had been remade. And my husband went over to his side of the bed and saw on the floor a grungy-looking T-shirt wrapped around a rag that was left there. At that point, we did call the guys to come back after we found out about the party and confronted them that night. Their response was, "It's no big deal. We had a few friends over. What's the problem?" The next day, we found the money was missing. We found...
What money?
In the drawer in my desk upstairs. We keep money in a...
Bank bag.
Bank bag. But as we started going through the house, like I said, we started finding more and more things that had been destroyed. On the nightstand in our bedroom, there's a watermark, which I do have a picture of that.
Tell me about this party, gentlemen. Now look,
Well, Your Honor...
I want you to look at me,
No,
and I want you to make sure of one thing.
Okay.
How old are you?
I'm 19.
I want you to tell me about the party. Everything about the party.
Okay.
I want you to just realize it. The truth will set you free. Don't try to scam me with you had a couple of friends over for a little barbecue in the backyard. I want to know how many people were there, inside or outside. How many invited, how many uninvited. How many just showed up.
How many people showed up? Approximately on Friday night, we had about 40 people show up.
Okay, so you had about 40. And how many people had you in... I read your papers, but you know, I've had teenagers, so I know.
I understand.
Okay, good. So you had about 40.
Your Honor?
Could there have been 50?
It's a possibility, yes, but it's not
So
likely.
there could have been 50. How many did you invite?
I personally didn't invite anybody to the party.
Who did?
That would have been Rick.
How many did you invite to the party?
3 or 4 people.
Shh. So you invited 3 or 4 and 40 or 50 or so showed up. Did you call the police?
No,
Why not?
because everybody was having a good time. We were very responsible, kept the house locked at all times. Everybody was strictly in the backyard only,
Well,
and
people...
I didn't want to ruin a good time.
Well,
Judge, the
Mr.
police were called.
Just a second. Mr. Large,
Yes.
you know that your conduct was unacceptable. You had a party, you had alcohol at the party? Speak.
Yes,
Who purchased the alcohol?
I purchased some of the alcohol.
All right. How much beer did you purchase, sir?
I didn't purchase beer. I purchased a bottle of gin,
Yes.
and that was it.
You mean that 40 or 50 people survived for an evening of revelry on 1 bottle of gin?
No, actually, people brought their own alcohol.
Really? So they were smart enough to come and bring their own stuff. Now, so you want to tell me how many hours this party lasted?
I don't know, about 8.
All right. So are you telling me, sir, that in an 8-hour party where everybody was drinking, nobody had to use a bathroom?
No, actually, they did, and I instructed them they weren't to go in the house under
So where
any
did they use the
circumstance.
bathroom? Where did they go potty?
I told them that they needed to go to a McDonald's down the street or somewhere down the street.
Sure.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Diana and Stephen Irwin claim former friends T.J. Cuddy and Rick Large were hired to look after their home. The Irwins say the boys threw a wild party and trashed their house.
So who slept in the beds?
Nobody slept in. I slept in a guest room on the guest room bed.
Is that part of your agreement?
Well,
That you were supposed to stay in the house?
they let me. I actually live with the Irwins. They told me they treated me like a son. They had welcomed me everywhere. You know, they said, "You're
Was
welcome."
it your arrangement on this weekend that you were to stay in the house?
No.
Miss Irwin,
Yes.
let me make myself clear. We are not going to entertain your missed money,
Right.
and I'm going to tell you why. Because it doesn't sound logical to me that somebody goes away and leaves 2 young men with access to their home and leaves what you claim was $8,000 in cash in your top desk drawer. Doesn't sound kosher to me. So I'm going to entertain your claim of whatever damage was done in your house, because I believe that both of these young men are absolutely responsible for that. Because if they invited 3 or 4 people and 50 people showed up, the first thing that you do if you are responsible is you get on the phone, you call the police, and you say there are people trespassing on this property and I want them removed. They chose not to do that because, according to Mr. Lodge, they were all having a good time in this party that lasted 8 hours. To me, a party lasts 4 hours and then your company goes home and that's it. So, tell me exactly what was damaged, how much it's going to cost to fix it, because that they are responsible for.
Well, we did also, I did want to say that the police were called 2 nights.
It was a long party. It was a long party.
Well, and the
You
one...
know that you don't leave teenage boys in your house, 19, 20, 21 years old, in your house and say, the house is now empty. Because you know what happens? The word gets out into the street. Party! And everybody comes.
They did note that they had planned the party well before we were out of town even.
Right. And how did
And-
they do that? Did they do that by
Right.
hiring, according to what I read in your complaint, a disc jockey?
Yes.
Was that disc jockey hired 3 weeks in advance?
No, ma'am.
When?
We called the disc jockey 2 hours before a party.
2 hours before the 3 or 4 people that you had invited
He
arrived?
was one of those.
Huh?
He was the person.
2 hours
one of the-
before the 3 or 4 people that you were having over for intimate barbecue in the backyard arrived, you called a disc jockey.
Well, Your Honor, the disc jockey was a personal friend of Rick's, and when he called his friend, the DJ, he was at another party, and instead of keeping that party there, he decided to bring it with him. That's how all those people ended up at the Irwin's house.
They get put off the premises by the police.
Yeah. We understand that what we did was wrong. That
Perfect.
night,
So then let's get to it. How much damage was caused?
We had to have the house rekeyed because we found that the...
You're absolutely right. Rekeyed. How much? Let me just get out my little calculator.
75.
75.75.
The
What else?
car had to be rekeyed, 96.54. No, on the table, I don't know how, or the nightstand, I don't know. I haven't gotten a quote on how much it will cost to fix the ring that's on there.
Do you have a picture of it for me to look at?
Yes, I do.
That's not a major deal. Do you have children?
Yes.
How old are your children?
25 and 27.
Ever left your children alone over the weekend and had a group of people over there that you didn't invite?
Yes, but they're much more responsible than that.
But it's happened. I know, I have kids.
But I think
I've had large parties, unanticipated parties at my house.
But I think the difference is it's my children and it's their home. And
That's why you trust your children. You don't trust strangers. You don't give strangers, teenagers, and those just above teen. How old are you?
I'm 24, but they always told me they treated me like a son.
Don't give me baloney.
Okay.
If they treated you like a son and you treated them like a parent, you would have been more careful with their property. Now let's get to Mr. Cuddy. Mr. Cuddy, according to your complaint, Mr. and Mrs. Irwin were very nice to you. You wanted a motorcycle.
Yes.
And
that's
Mr.
correct.
Irwin agreed to advance you some money for the motorcycle.
Yes, he agreed to be the lien holder on the title
Right. According to what I read, it was $5,000. Is that right?
for $4,800 in these.
So almost $5,000. You put in $1,000 and he paid $4,000. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then he repossessed the motorcycle.
That's correct.
And you want the money that you put down on the
That's
motorcycle.
correct.
That's your claim. Where is the motorcycle now?
It is in storage.
And the title is in your name?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, then you have to return to him $1,009.46.
But, Your Honor,
Yes.
I'm stuck with the bike, and I have a consignment agreement from the dealer that shows clearly that the value of the bike now, I'm going to take a loss.
Listen to me. If there's bad business on your part, but I can
I
understand Mr. Cuddy. He put in $1,009.46. He had an agreement with you. It was a verbal agreement that you were going to be the lien holder on the bike and he was going to pay for it. You cannot keep that bike and not give him back his $1,000. You can't do it. So on your counterclaim, Mr. Cuddy, I am awarding you the $1,009.46. On your claim, Mr. and Mrs. Irwin, for these boys doing damage to your home, you are entitled to $197.29 with the admonition to you, keep strangers out of your house and don't give them access to your house because it's always trouble. And with the admonition to you, Mr. Lodge, that if you say to me that these people treated you like you were a child of theirs, one of theirs, and was very good to you, you certainly didn't respect them nor their property in a way that I would like one of my children to behave. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Their house looked better when we left than when we got there.
the reality was it was 2 nights of parties and a barbecue.
He said that the next time Diana went out of town, he wanted us to throw a party again and invite him.
It's closure. That's what we purpose of coming.
He's a shady guy. I mean, he's really a slime ball.
Hopefully, we can all move on with our lives and just go forward.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Clem versus Randolph. Step forward, please.
31-year-old home siding installer Mike Clem is suing his fiance's brother, 17-year-old James Randolph, for kicking his car in a fit of rage. James says he became upset when Mike refused to give him a ride to work.
Mr. Clem, the defendant is your soon-to-be brother-in-law,
Yes, Your Honor.
and he damaged your car
Yes, ma'am.
in a fit of anger,
Yes, Your Honor.
and you want him to pay for it.
Yes.
You acknowledge, sir, that you damaged this car, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, tell me why you did that, and when you did that, and why you shouldn't be responsible for paying for it.
Well, at the time, I was extremely angry.
What were you angry at?
We got in a little fight because I was supposed to go to work that day. He said he would, and then
He would what?
He would take me to work.
At what time was this?
It was maybe around 11:30ish.
So at 11:30 you asked him, and he said he could, and then what happened?
It was around 1 o'clock or so. He said he started walking out the door, and I asked him again. Then he said he wasn't going to take me anywhere.
Did he say why?
He said he was going the opposite way.
So what did you do?
I got mad and I went back in the house.
Tell me about his car.
Well, after I went in the house, he came inside and he started yelling at me. My mother,
What was he yelling?
he was just saying, "You jerk," and things like that.
Why, had you said anything nasty to him?
At the time, I didn't know.
Go ahead.
So then he kept on, saying the same things. My mom tried to get him, to sit down and everything and just calm down. He pushed my mother out of the way, and then I got extremely mad. And then we both ended up actually getting in a fist fight.
We haven't gotten to the car yet.
Well, after that, after he left, I was very angry. I had to do something. He pushed Mom out of the way. So I went up to the car and
Which car?
this car is up on blocks.
And what'd you do?
And I just kicked it because I was so mad.
I would like you to tell me your version of what happened. At 11:30, he asked you to take him to work?
No, ma'am.
Tell me what happened, sir.
It was about 11 o'clock that morning. Him and his sister, my fiance, Stacy, went into town and to the store and some other odd and ends. At that point, he told her, you know, I got to be at work at 12 noon. And to the best of my knowledge, she never agreed to take him. So when she got back with my truck, I had to go to work that day, which was on a Sunday, but I had to be at work. So he asked me, he said, can you take me to work? He said, you got to take me. I said, Keith, I said, no, I don't. I said, it's out of my way, and I said, I got to go to work. Well, he went back in the house. He slammed my door. Then he came back out when Stacy exited my house. She went to work with me that day and said something to her, and she said, Keith, she said, I can't take you. I'm going with Mike. Well, he got mad and went back into my house, slammed my door a second time. Well, then at that point in time, that's when I entered my house. And we got into a little screaming match. There was punches thrown, but there really was no connection to him. His mother did get in the middle of it, try to break it up. But to the best of my knowledge, and I mean, you may ask Stacy, she did not get pushed or hit.
Okay. Now, when did you notice any damage to your car?
It was the following day. I was out in the yard with Stacy and my uncle. And I happened to look in my yard, and I seen a big dent in my quarter panel. And when I went up to look at it, me and my uncle, you could visibly see a footprint.
Fine. So now, Mr. Randolph, I'd like you to tell me why you are not responsible for the damage.
Well, as I told you before about my mom.
I don't care about your mom. That doesn't give you license to go out and hurt his car. What's next?
But the thing is, you know, I was so angry, and the car is old, it's on blocks, there's a bunch of trash inside of it.
Is that your defense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can I see the pictures of the car and the estimate for the repair, please?
Yes, ma'am. And you can visibly see there is tires on the car, wheels and tires. At one time, there was a back tire off, and that was for us trying to push the dent out, and it would not come out.
How many times did you kick the car, sir?
4 times on each side.
That's nasty. Okay. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,490. Thank you.
Thank you.
Isaac.
Suing his former live-in girlfriend, 26-year-old caregiver Charlene Lechner, for damages to his car caused by her and her children. Charlene is countersuing, claiming Stephen filed false charges with Child Protective Services.
Come to order. All rise. Now, this is case number 481 on the calendar in the matter of Andrews versus Lechner. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ladies, have seats.
Mr. Andrews, you, for a brief period of time, dated the defendant, and I gather from your papers lived in her home. Is that right?
That's correct, Your Honor.
She has 2 young children.
That's
How old are her children?
She has 4 young children. The 2 that lives with her are a 6-year-old named Sean and a 4-year-old named Christopher.
All right. When did you move into her house?
Right around the 12th of November.
Of last year?
Of last year.
Let me look at your claim very carefully, sir, because you claim 2 injuries to your car.
That's correct.
You say that in November, 2 of her children caused some damage to your car. So that was shortly after you moved in.
That's correct.
All right, tell me about what happened. One of them jumped off a roof and ended on the hood of your car, and then the other one threw a pebble and broke a light. Is that right?
Sean,
Is that right? Is that about right?
Well, one was a deck. It was about waist high to me.
Just one of them jumped on the hood of your car.
Yes, that was Christopher.
And the next time something happened to your car, one of the kids was throwing some pebbles and
broke both my low beam and high beam on my headlights.
the glass.
Yes.
Cost you $40-some-odd to fix that. Is that right? Okay. Now, did you continue to live with the defendant?
Yes, I did.
What did you say to her about this damage
I
to the
told
car?
her about it, and she goes, well, my next payday, you'll get your little headlights fixed. When I confront her about the hood, she goes, well, Steve, why don't you just sue me?
Okay. And you didn't, just a second, and you didn't sue her?
No, I didn't. Not at that time, because I was still dating her.
Right. You were still dating her, living in her house, sleeping in her bed, right?
Sleeping on the couch, mostly.
Well, that's your problem. Shh, please. That's your problem. But living with her. Living with her. So I'm not interested in the damage that her kids did to your car, sir. It's irrelevant. You were living there. If you felt as if the children were beyond control, what you would have done is you would have packed up and gone back to your mother's house, which you did subsequently, but much later. Now, you decided to move out on what date?
I have it here. It was January 12th of 2002.
Oh, okay. So you stayed a couple of months.
Correct.
And on that evening, you had some sort of an altercation with the defendant in which you claimed that she damaged your car. So that you can tell me about.
Okay. I had went and moved back in with my mom. Charlene had come to my mom's place saying that she wanted to talk to me. When I went and go to the door, my mom went to the door, ordered her off the property. She went, started her car, kept inching her car back into my car, hitting the front of my car, setting off my car alarm. And then she sped out of the place where we live, which is a 5-mile-an-hour zone, doing about 45, 50 miles an hour. Then, when I went out to shut off my alarm, my car was still shaking from her backing into it.
And you say that she did some damage to your car.
Yes, she did. I have an estimate right here.
Well, I'd like to see the photographs and the estimate.
I don't have photographs because I do not own a camera. This is an estimate right here.
You own a car, but you don't have a camera that you can put your hands on? You don't have $7 to go buy a disposable camera?
At the time, I just started my job and I hadn't received my first paycheck.
Then you borrow it from your mother if you plan on suing her for the damage to your car. I mean, I have to see some photographs. How do I know what this is all about? This says hood panel. I'm not interested in what the kids did to your car, sir. You stayed. That was your choice. But for the fact that you decided to separate, you would never have brought up the incident with the 2 children. So I have no idea what the damage you attribute to her is. Do you?
The front valance, since it's a fiberglass car, was misaligned. It cracked the lower air dam or spoiler.
Lower deflector?
That would be the front valance.
How much does that cost?
It was $221.50 for the air dam itself.
Why did you hit his car? Were you just angry?
I didn't hit his car, Your Honor. I have the proof right here.
Let me
Pictures,
see.
everything. Also, I did take my car to get inspected through Geico, his insurance.
Well, according to this, and this is done by Geico Direct, it says, I do not see any signs of damage that would indicate that this vehicle backed into another vehicle causing any damage. No paint transfer on the bumper. Bumper had not been washed. Geico said that they found no evidence that the car was damaged, sir. Okay, now let's deal with your counterclaim. You say that the plaintiff called Child Protective Services with regard to your children. Did you do that, Mr. Andrews?
Yes, I did.
When did you do it?
2 days after I left.
Tell me why.
I had witnessed her. She was sleeping on the love seat. Her kids were watching TV, and I guess one of them had changed his channel from one cartoon to another. And so the 4-year-old started making noise, and she grabbed him by the throat, picked him up, and threw him on the ground and said, "Shut the F up."
When did she do that, sir?
The day before, like the Friday I had left, or the Friday before I left. And then when the 6-year-old started crying about it, she picked up an ashtray, threw it at him, hitting him in the head, saying, "You shut up too, you little bee."
Is that what precipitated your leaving?
That was part of it. There was a lot of stuff leading up to it.
What did you say to her when she did that to the children?
I looked at her and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And she goes, "They're my kids. You're going to tell me how to raise my kids?"
Was that the first time that you had seen her do anything to her children?
Yes. I'm not the first person to call CPS on her. Her mother had called it in the past, and she had had her kids put in foster care because of it, though.
All 4 of her children, or just 2 of them?
Just 2 of them, because 2 of them live with their biological father.
How old are those 2 children?
I believe 11 and 9.
Is that correct?
No.
How old are
My
your other
daughter's
2
8,
children?
And my son's 11.
And they live with their father?
Yes.
How come?
He went to court and did not notify me and got custody.
Whatever. They live with their father. That's not true. That's not true. You have to tell the whole story. I mean, I was in family court for a long time. No.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Stephen Andrews says his ex-girlfriend Charlene Lechner owes for damages she and her children caused to his car. Charlene says Stephen told Child Protective Services that she physically threatened her kids.
If somebody goes to court and doesn't notify you, and you find out, you wake up one day and you look around the bedroom and you say, aha, 2 of my children are missing. What happened to them? Then you go back to court and you say, listen, I wasn't notified of this hearing.
I didn't get notified until they got picked up, Your Honor.
So they got picked up where?
With the police. and him waiting for him.
There's a lot more to that story, madam. How long have the children been with their father?
For about 2 years.
Do you visit with them?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you have visitation rights.
Yes.
Good, so you knew enough to go to court to get visitation rights, and
Yes.
the court gave you visitation, but the court did not give you custody.
Not yet, Your Honor. I'm still fighting.
Not yet, that's not going to happen. Yeah, these two other children are two other children from a different relationship or the same relationship?
Different.
Have any of your children ever been in foster care?
Yes.
Which children have been in foster care?
All 4 of them.
For how long?
For about 1.5 years, 2 years.
Mr. Andrews just described an incident that he says he witnessed in your home. Did that happen?
No.
Anything like it?
No.
Did you ever have a substance abuse problem?
No.
I'm not going to be able to determine, Ms. Lechner, whether Mr. Andrews made this call maliciously. He says he did. Do you have any proof that he made this call maliciously?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it.
I've got the CPS worker's card, the one that came out to do the investigation. And he had taken my boys separately and talked with them. And I guess Mr. Andrews had told him that they're scared of me. They said no, they're scared of him. And they started talking about incidents when I was absent, I was at work. And they told him about incidents that Mr. Andrews had done to them.
Were you notified before CPS was coming out to conduct the investigation?
No, I wasn't.
You mean they made a surprise visit?
Yes.
When they made a surprise visit, did they take the children independently
Yes.
out?
Yes.
Okay, and you had no indication that they were coming at all?
No, ma'am.
And are you telling me that you have any proof? Don't give me the card. Do you have any proof that they closed the case?
The case was never opened. They just investigated the report that he had called in. And it was closed out.
What reason do you think Mr. Andrews would have for calling Child Protective Services?
Because during the times that we were together, he knew my children were very important to me. I mean, I'm working 2 jobs to support him, and I'm a single parent. So, and he knows that my children are my life. You know, I revolve around my children, what's best for them.
That doesn't answer the question, madam. You could do a lot of things to get
He
back
wanted
at
revenge.
For what?
I have no clue why.
I don't know either, but I'm not prepared to say at this point that he did not see at least a version of what he indicates that he saw. Now, I don't know why he waited 2 days to call Child Protective Services. Evidently, it didn't impact you enough to call immediately, sir.
I didn't want to call from her residence.
So, you go outside to your mother's house and you call 5 minutes later, not days later. You understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
So what she's saying is, you sat back and you said to yourself, she came to my house, maybe she touched my car, I'm going to call and report what I saw, or a version of what I saw. But I believe something happened with your children. I'm not sure it was as bad as what he suggests, but I believe something happened with your children. In any event, your children have been in foster care once. Your children were in foster care once because of court proceedings, so you're not a stranger to that proceeding. I am not prepared to find that he made this call maliciously, so I'm dismissing your counterclaim. But I'm also dismissing your claim, sir, because I find no evidence based upon your proof of anything that she did to your car. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Nothing happened to my children. I would not lay a hand on him.
I have better things to do than to beat up on little children.
He had put poop on my kid's face.
I'm above stuff like that.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Edwards versus Garcia, step forward, please.
31-year-old university administrator Delilah Edwards is suing 33-year-old sales rep Tracy Garcia for a bounced check. Tracy says the check in question isn't from her.
Miss Edwards, according to your complaint, you're involved with some sort of a cheerleading squad that's attached to a football league.
Yes.
And the defendant said that she would collect some money for the cheerleaders' banquet. And she did, and she said she raised $75. And she gave you a check for the $75.
Correct.
You put the check into your account, and the check bounced. You want her to pay triple damages for the fact that the check bounced and it threw your account out of whack, and you had certain fees and charges, et cetera, et cetera. Defendant says it was her ex-husband's check. She didn't know that the account had been closed, and whatever it was, she made up the money by giving cash to the football league. But we really hear about this check. Now, who has the check for me to look at?
I do.
Can I see it, please? So she did not sign this check?
No, that's what the bank is telling me. I spoke to the
No,
customer
no, no.
service.
She did not sign this check. It's clear that this is signed by someone by the name of Joseph.
Correct.
So she gave you Joseph check for $75.
Correct.
You deposited Joseph check into your bank, and Joseph check bounced.
Yes, it came back actually unable to locate account, which means the account has been closed for more than 6 months.
And when did she give you this check? On what
On
date?
December 6th, the evening of the banquet. I was in contact.
On December 6th, she
Yes.
gave it to you?
Yes.
Well, it's dated December 8th.
I see.
Check is dated. How did you come into possession of this check, Ms. Garcia?
My ex-husband gave that check to me to give to them.
To give to them. Why would your ex-husband give you a check to give to them?
Because when I had originally received the sponsorship money, it was in a check and it was made out to me. When I asked them what I should do with that, they told me to go ahead and cash it and then I would give them the money. So the night of the banquet, my children were home with the chicken pox and I didn't have time to go to the bank, so I told my ex-husband if he could give me a check and I would give him the money.
Where is he? How did you get in touch with your ex-husband?
Well, we still stay in contact, and he was at home. I went down to his home. He gave me the check, and I told him on Monday I would give him the money to cover the check. And he agreed upon that. Well, I had no idea that this account was closed.
Did you explain that to the plaintiff?
I haven't even spoken to her. They could have gotten in touch with me several times.
Your Honor, we left several messages before it came to this. We called relentlessly. We left messages at home. I started by calling and saying, you know, hey, Tracy, I still have trophies I need to get to the girls. Could you please call me so I can get their phone numbers and get in contact with the girls? When I made the first phone call, I already knew about the check, and I left no message regarding the check in hopes that she would call me back and I could get her on the phone and say, you know, hey, Trace, this check came back. Can we work this out? You know, if you'll just pay me the amount of the check back, we would have been happy. We got no return phone call from her at all.
All right, now we have a bad check. She doesn't get treble damages. This is not your check that was drawn by you on your bank. This was your husband's check. I cannot impugn to you knowledge that the account was closed because he gave you this check. All right? But out of curiosity, what did you do with the $75 that you had in fact collected?
It was turned into the board where the money should have originally gone. This money is supposed to be funneled through the board. It's not to be deposited into anybody's personal account.
Okay, Your Honor. I received from the restaurant owner that donated the money to her in the amount of $75. I have a copy of the carbon from the check that he actually made it out to the Redlands Football Organization. However, Tracy deposited that check in her personal account, so she altered the check as well.
I do not have a personal account to even deposit anything into. I do not have a checking account or
Well, then
a
I'd like to
savings
know how
account.
this check got cashed, and I have a letter from the restaurant owner as well.
Well, did you check with the board and find out whether she
We've
had
left messages for the board.
Shh. Did you check with the board to find out whether she had in fact deposited the $75 with the board?
No, I didn't. I actually called the board because they owe us money still.
Oh, okay. Do you have something from the board
Right, I have a
indicating-
statement from the board.
Can I
Both,
see it, please?
both Edward and Delilah have been removed from the Redlands Football Board.
Just 1 second. Okay. I see a deposit made in the amount of $75 in cash to Community Bank, and that was on February the 12th.
Conveniently.
You didn't
Redlands-
make the deposit to
No,
them
I
until
didn't.
February.
I didn't make that deposit. I gave them cash. That was the deposit showing that,
That they made the
they
deposit.
made the deposit.
Okay. In any event, the board has indicated that they have in fact received from Ms. Garcia the $75. You can read this if you like. That's the most important thing, that they have received it. There's a lot of other stuff there that I'm...
Right. The reason that money came to us was because we had put out of pocket a large sum of money for the banquet. We did get some money from the board. We also are still owed money from the board. So in fact, that money is money still out of our pocket that Tracy handed us a fraudulent check.
Ms. Edwards, she did not give you knowingly a fraudulent check. I want you to stop for a second.
Okay.
There is no proof, and you do not have any proof, that she knew at the time she gave you this check that this was a closed account.
I spoke to Bank of America, whom the check is drawn on, and they provided me with some additional information regarding the check. They can verify that that account has been closed since March 10th of 1998, and the signature does not match the signature they have on file for Mr.
Whatever. You cannot establish that She knowingly gave you a bad check. This was clearly not a joint account. It was in his name only. His name only. So that being the case, and if the money is supposed to go to some charitable organization, she collected $75. She turned that money over to the board. I'm sorry if the board still owes you more money, but she doesn't owe you anything. Case is dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Is suing her former friend, 30-year-old health unit coordinator Lisa Boozer, for an unpaid loan. Lisa says Regina has inflated the amount.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. All rise.
Thank you. Your Honor, this is case number 571 on the calendar in the matter of Harper versus Boozer. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ladies, have seats, please.
Ms. Harper, the defendant was a friend of yours, according to your complaint. You loaned her some money. According to you, you have a note to prove the loan. She did not repay you the entire amount, and you want it. Is that what this is about?
Yes.
Defendant says she borrowed some money, not as much as you claim. She paid you back every cent that she owes you. So, when did you make this loan and why?
I made the loan to Lisa on 6/20/01 because she had written 6 fraudulent checks and she needed the money to repay the checks.
Well, how did you find out about this need that she had for the money?
She called me on 6/19 at 10 o'clock in the morning and asked me to pick her up from work because she had a warrant out on for these checks. So.
She had a warrant out?
Mm-hmm.
How much money did she tell you she needed?
$1,200 and something.
Go ahead.
I had a loan that I had previously and I had paid it off. So she asked me if I could help her. Could I see if I could borrow the money from there to help her out?
What money? Explain that to me.
I borrowed some. I had a loan already at First Franklin. It was, you know, where I could go back and borrow money if I needed to. So then I called them and I asked her, could I borrow $1,200? And she said I could borrow up to $2,000. So I told her I didn't need that much, that I needed $1,200. So I had to do $1,500.
Why did you have to do $1,500?
I couldn't borrow $1,200.
So let me see the loan papers where you borrowed $1,500. Okay. And the total payments that you had to make with all the interest that they add up was $2,280 on this $1,500.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Go ahead.
So then I got the money, and they wrote me out a check, and I had to take the check to the bank, and I cashed the check. And me and my witness, Alice Tanner, we went. I had to pick Alice up to take her to work, so we went to Lisa's sister's house, and I gave her $1,480, and I had her sign.
Now let me see the note that you say you had her sign. You show the defendant this and ask her if it's her signature. Is that your signature?
Yes, it is.
Fine. Okay, so I'm going to read this note. It says, I, Regina Harper, that's you, borrowed $2,280 from First Franklin Financial Corporation on 6/20/01 for Lisa Boozer, in which she, Lisa, agrees to pay $100 on the 20th of every month until the balance is paid in full. And you signed that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, how much did you give her back?
Judge Judy, first of all, it was 5 fraudulent checks, okay? The total came up to $830. I have the receipts right here where I paid them. I had $100 of my own money. My mother gave me $30. Regina only gave me $700. I never seen none of the agreement that she signed with the loan company or any of that.
You signed this piece of paper?
Because she said she needed, she was going to get her bills consolidated, and that she needed to let them know that she was not paying that back, that I was the one that would needed to pay that back, not her. Me and her splitted that. She needed money for school to pay school off to get her, her grades. She gave me $700, and she kept the rest of it.
Well, how am I supposed to tell that from this note that you signed? How am I supposed to tell that? I mean, are you an unintelligent girl?
No, I am not.
Well,
me and Regina both went to college together, and she knows this.
If you went to college
yes,
together,
ma'am.
so you are clearly an intelligent young woman. This is a promissory note for $2,280, where you promised to pay back $100 a month. Now, I don't doubt that that scenario could have happened.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, you're an intelligent young woman. Why would you sign something like this?
Because we were friends, and she said she needed the money for her new baby to get her bills consolidated so she wouldn't be in a bind.
Very possible.
Yeah.
Now, you paid her back some. Let me see the receipts of what you paid her.
I never got any receipts. I gave Regina cash. My sister was with me every time I paid her.
all the receipts. She has made 3 payments.
You never gave me a receipt. You never.
Because you never paid
You
it.
never gave
You
me
never
no
paid
receipt.
It. I paid.
Where you gave the receipt to?
Don't fight with each other. Listen to me.
It's in
Don't
your
fight with each other.
Hell, I'm going to have a receipt.
Shh, don't fight with each other. Don't speak
She
to each
wouldn't
other.
have a
Don't
receipt,
speak.
Judge Judy, because she never went and paid the loan. I had to go and track her down every 20th of the month, 25th, and go and make the payments myself, go to this place.
How
2 or
many
3
payments
times.
did she make?
She made 3.
Of $300?
She made 3 payments of 3, so that's $300, and I've been making them ever since.
Can my sister please speak, Judge Judy?
Sure.
Come on, please.
Go ahead.
They made the transaction at my house, and it was $700 that Regina counted out to my sister at my house. Then we went and we paid on the checks. Me, my mom, and my sister went and paid on the checks. And I was with Lisa on a couple of occasions when she did make the payments to Regina. Regina came over to my house to get the payment. The young lady that's with her now, she don't even know where I stay. I never met her. It's my first time ever meeting her. And we went up to the hospital to also give Regina some money, too.
So, I have a piece of paper here. It is a contract. It says, I will pay back this amount of money. If there was a side contract that it wasn't going to be that much money, and I'm not doubting that it's possible that that happened, but I'm not dealing with an unintelligent young woman here.
You're right.
I'm dealing with an intelligent young woman. You have a contract. You agreed. It was notarized. You went in to somebody actually to have it notarized. The signature's notarized. So you were aware that this was a binding sort of contract.
You know, Judge Judy, you know, it's ironic that this would come up after Regina was under investigation at Spummer Regional Medical Center for going into her baby's new girlfriend's files. And I told her, me and her went to college together, and we went through too much to get to where we was at. And if they ever came to me and asked me, was she the one that went in her files
And they would see that
found
you
out.
pulled up her.
All
No,
right,
ma'am.
listen, I'm not.
No, ma'am.
Hey,
No,
listen to
ma'am.
me.
No, ma'am. You know you did it.
Miss
I don't want
Boozer,
to
Miss
see
Boozer.
Yes,
She's
ma'am.
saying she don't have.
Listen to me.
I don't have S6.
1,
She's
2,
saying-
3. And you're out of here. I'm not a young person anymore. I don't like to shout.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Regina Harper says former friend Lisa Boozer refuses to pay back a loan.
You borrowed this money in June.
Yes, ma'am.
And the interest was substantial. And according to you, and even according to your witness, you made no more than 3 payments on the $700 because that's all she's prepared to testify to. Why didn't you pay the rest? Why? No, don't make up a story. Why didn't you pay the rest?
I paid her the rest. I made, the last payment I gave her was January when I received the court papers.
When you paid her in January, did you get a receipt?
No.
Then I don't believe you. And I'm going to tell you why. Then I'm going to tell you why. Did you pay her by check?
No.
Then I'm going to tell you why. Because unless you are really thick, somebody sues you, and you want to make your final payment. And you say that I won't owe you anything, even though the amount that she was suing you for was different. If you give her the money, you at least say, at least this time, I'm going to do it by a money order so that I have a record. I'm going to do it with a receipt so I have a record. I'll do it by check so I have a record. But you don't just go and hand her the money in cash. So I don't believe you. Judgment for the plaintiff and the amount requested in the amount of $1,700. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I think that, you know, she need to go get a life and find her baby's father.
She never was my friend. And when she get back home, she will be picked up because she wrote another check in December.
She goes into her ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend's files and finds out that she has breast cancer.
And was going around
goes
telling
around
everybody.
Spartanburg and tell everybody.
Stay away from this one.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Oakley versus Graham. Step forward, please.
50-year-old construction worker Mike Oakley is suing 44-year-old contractor Hans Graham for running him off the road and assaulting him in a fit of road rage. Hans claims Mike started it.
All right, you two gentlemen were in your cars. You don't know each other. And there was an incident that looked to me like a little bit of road rage. Mr. Oakley, you claimed that the defendant caused damage to your car.
Yes.
You want to tell me first when this happened?
This happened November 9th, 6:20 a.m.
Where were you going or coming from, sir?
I was going to work up I-15 out of San Diego.
Was it light or dark out?
It was just getting light.
What kind of car were you driving?
2002 Toyota truck.
Okay, tell me what happened.
I was in the second lane, which is right next to the fast lane, which I traveled that lane.
How many lanes are there altogether?
There was 6.
Go ahead.
We were just going along, and
who was with you?
Donnie is he works for our company too. He's a carpooler. He rides with me.
Okay.
Driving along, and we got slow traffic in the second lane. It was down to about 60 miles an hour, and I signaled, moved over into the fast lane. Before I knew it, Mr. Graham was on my rear end, and he went to go around me in the second lane. He went past me and cut back into the first lane, and that's where he clipped me and knocked me out of control. I went left, I went right, I went left again and got it under control. I pulled off the road because I couldn't go to the right, there were so many lanes. I pulled off. He had pulled off in front of me about 30, 40 feet. Got out of my truck. As soon as I shut my door, Mr. Graham was right on top of me, saying that he was going to kick my... And he pushed me, and I fell over the little wall that's in between the freeways. I got back up, went to the back of my truck, reached in for a hammer because I didn't know what this guy was going to do next. He came down the side of the truck, stopped there. He went towards the window and asked Donnie if he would like a little bit of this too, and he punched the window. The window didn't break, and after that he came back again, he stopped and went back to his truck. He wrote down some information, I guess, and he threw the information at me, said I had to go to work, and he left the scene.
Let me see the police report, please. What is that piece of cardboard that you have, sir?
That's showing how the accident happened. This is Mr. Graham. This is me, and this is Mr. Graham. He came up behind us. I guess this is the wrong way. Here we go. I'm sorry. Well, he was in the one lane.
You're the red car. Listen to me. In the way
No,
you
I'm
have
not
that
the red.
diagram.
I'm in the second lane here. I moved over, and when he went around...
I said you're the red
yes,
car.
You're absolutely right. I'm sorry.
Okay, you're the red car.
Okay. So I moved over into this lane.
Okay, and probably what you did was you cut him off. Is that right, Mr. Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
You cut him off.
I
He
got in
got
front of him.
angry.
Yes.
So he went around you
Went around me.
to get back in front of you to cut you off.
Yes. And he clipped my front end.
No, ma'am.
Okay. I'm going to get to you in a second.
Thank you.
Can I see what kind of damage was done to your truck, please?
I have the pictures here. It's kind of hard to see because of the light. And here's the estimate for the damage.
What kind of deductible do you have, sir?
$1,000.
Okay. Now, Mr. Graham, I'll hear you, sir.
Is that the amended police report? Because there was actually 2, and I never got the amended one. This was the first one filed. Okay, he left out a couple key facts there. He cut me off, straight off, underneath, couldn't even see his lights. I couldn't even hit my brakes. I went around him and actually kept my tires still in this lane here. When we went up here, I was not concentrating on him. There was another car beside me. I was holding on to my steering wheel, watching this car here. Boom, all of a sudden we make contact. I look back to see him lose control of his vehicle.
Mr. Graham, why did you attempt to get back into the
I didn't. I stayed straight. I went around him. When he made the lane change, he actually went too far over. I mean, he came in front of me quick, and he knows it. He knows he cut me off. You ask him point blank. He
Mr.
cut
Graham,
me off.
that may have happened, sir.
Okay, I didn't even see his lights.
No, listen to me. That may have happened, sir. Let's say he didn't look before he put on his signal. Now, I have, in fact, in my lifetime, seen some drivers. They do the following. They put on their signal, then they change lanes, and then they look. And I'll say to them, no, you got the order wrong. The order is you put on your blinker, then you look. If it's clear, then you change lanes.
That's not what he did. He went...
Okay. So, Mr. Graham, do you think that he did that because he wanted to get into an accident or because he just wasn't thinking?
He wasn't thinking.
Right. Just stop right there. So if somebody's not thinking, I mean, so he wasn't a nut, just wasn't thinking. And I've seen that. I'm sure that most of us have been in that situation where you know, you're thinking about something else and you want to change a lane, or you're getting on a highway and, you know, you're looking in one direction, you get on the parkway, and all of a sudden you see a car. It comes out of nowhere. That's what causes accidents. But why did you get so angry?
Well,
you got, Mr. Graham.
Not yet. Can I finish? You told me let me have my chance to talk.
You got angry because he cut you off.
No, I didn't. Everything happened so quick, I had to get by him. I had another car here. I got angry when we got out of the truck, and that's where he left out more key parts. We weren't 30 feet apart. Our truck was 10 feet apart. I walked to the back of my truck. He threw his door open, got out, threw his hands up, and said, "Why didn't you let me in?" And when he took a step towards me, I stepped towards him. He wasn't going to hit me, so I pushed him. He fell down.
No, Mr. Graham. Listen to me, sir. I read your answer very carefully. You said when he got out of the truck, he said to you, "Why didn't you let me in?" And then you wrote, "I pushed him."
No, he threw his hands up. I'm telling you, he threw his hands up.
So he threw his hands up. You said, "So I pushed him." And then you say, he jumped back up, which means you pushed him hard enough to knock him down.
Yes, ma'am. He fell down.
So when I say to you, Mr. Graham, that you were angry, you can't say to me I wasn't angry.
Oh, no.
You were angry.
I was angry when I got out of the truck. Yes,
You
ma'am.
were angry before you got out of the truck.
No, ma'am.
Well, I think you were.
Well, I didn't have time. It happened like 1, 2, 3. And then he jumped up and he went to his window that I hit, and he told his buddy, "Are you going to get out of the truck or what?" And that's when I said, "Yeah, come on, hit him, get out of the truck."
Mr. Graham, why did you, just a second, you just said you went over to his buddy where you had just hit the window. Why did you hit his window?
No, he went to his buddy.
No, you said to me, "I just hit the window."
I did.
You said to me, "I hit the
Yes,
window."
ma'am. But before...
Why did you hit his window?
I'm talking to his buddy. "Go ahead, get out of the truck. Come on, get out of the truck."
You were out of control.
No.
You were out of control. He may have done the wrong thing by cutting you off. And if he got out of the car and say, "Why didn't you let me in?" And maybe it's possible that it's not as I had originally thought, that he just wasn't looking, but that he wanted to get over, and maybe you weren't letting him in, and he went over anyway. That's a possibility. But my sense of what happened here is you totally overreacted to a situation.
It's incorrect, Your Honor.
Where were you going to, Mr.
I was
Graham?
going to work. I was going to a job where I install a marble and granite, and I had a marble delivery there I had to sign for. I was not out of control. If I would have been out of control, I would have thumped him.
You were out of control, sir, because you put your hands on him first, and then you went over to...
He stepped towards me with his hands in the air.
No.
Yes, ma'am, he did.
No. I don't believe that, sir. I don't
Okay.
believe that he stepped towards you with his hands in the air in a combative position. If he did, I'm telling you, based upon your posture here today, you would have hit him, not pushed him. And then after that happened, you went over to his friend. I'm speaking. You went over to his friend who was in the passenger seat, and you banged on the window.
No, but
Judgment
I was
for the
under
plaintiff
control.
in the amount of $1,000. That's all.
We're not going to look at the pictures or anything?
I just did.
Excuse, you may step out.
You and the defendant dated for a period of time and signed a 6-month lease together in August of 2006?
That is correct.
How long had you been dating before you decided to move in with him?
I met him in March, so I was dating under 6 months.
I ask that not because it's particularly relevant, but I'm conducting my own sociological study. I want to see how quickly it is that people make this
mistake.
Right.
Yes.
Perfect. In any event, your lawsuit says that you moved in August.
Yes, August 5th.
And you moved out in?
September 25th.
Right, so the living together at least saved you a bad marriage.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Good. It is your claim that Mr. Ware is responsible for half of a cruise that you booked with his consent and his agreement to pay for half of the trip. It was a non-refundable amount of money. It was $2,000, $1,000 for you, $1,000 for him, which, of course, he didn't go on.
Correct.
Because the cruise was scheduled for...
October 7th, excuse me.
Did you take anyone else with you?
No.
So you had the cabin all by yourself?
I sure did.
So let's deal with that first. You moved in August. Things started to go downhill right away. I don't have to know the why. It was not good. You were both not unhappy with the separation. Is that right?
Yes.
You moved out, but you continued to pay the rent. Your half of the rent.
I did.
Does she still continue to pay her half of the rent?
Up until December.
I think she's a princess. And you continue to live there?
Yes, I did.
All by yourself?
And my kids, when I had them for visitation, yes, I did.
Well, isn't that nice?
Yeah.
So you had a great place to live. Are you still living there?
Until January 6th.
And then what happens?
I received a 30-day notice.
Why?
Because she didn't pay her as it states in this letter, she didn't pay for December's rent.
Why didn't you pay?
I paid my half.
Why didn't you pay the whole thing?
Because I have a written agreement from her that says that she would pay the half as long as I
I'm
didn't
telling you,
have a room.
if she's paid September, October, and November, and she hasn't lived there, and you've lived there with your kids, so how old are you?
Me, 37.
Why don't you take care of your own responsibilities? Where are you going after January? They gave you a 30-day notice. Where do you intend to go?
Oh, I'll find a place. No, none in mind right now.
What do you mean you have none in mind?
Well, I'm looking.
How much rent do you pay?
$675.
Is that the entire rent?
No.
Or just your half?
That my half.
Okay. When you moved in to that apartment, where had you been living just prior to that?
With my boss, as well as Christina.
With your boss?
Yes.
What kind of work do you do?
I am a cabinet installer.
And you lived in your boss's house?
Yes, I did. As well as he's a friend as well.
Before you lived with your boss, where did you live?
I lived with my friend, me and a friend named Brian.
And when you lived with Brian, how much rent did you pay?
About $300 a month because it was just for a room.
How many children do you have?
2.
How much child support do you pay?
The child support is, my son is not legally mine. I accepted that responsibility when he was born, and after she went after his real father for child support, so they dismissed that court order, and for Bella it's $246, I think it is.
How much child support do you pay?
$246.
He doesn't pay child support.
When was the last time you paid child support, Mr. Ware?
It's been a couple years because my ex-wife put a letter in. She said that when she required me to pay child support, that I didn't see the kids regularly, so she wrote a letter to the district attorneys in Sacramento County.
That's hearsay. I just asked you a simple question. When was the last time you paid child support? You said several years ago.
Yeah.
You just told me that you used your apartment, sir, this apartment that you were living in and having half the rent paid by the plaintiff for both yourself and your children when you had them. So clearly you were seeing your children within the last 3 or 4 months.
Yes.
But you haven't been paying child support.
No.
Is this your boss?
Yes, it is.
How did I know that? Are you paid on the books or off the books?
On the books. I'm 1099.
And how much was your 1099 last year?
I didn't work for him last year.
Yes, he did.
Mr. Ware, he doesn't even want to stand up anymore and get involved with this, sir. Did you file tax returns last year?
No, I did not.
You just told me you lived with your boss last year before you moved in with her.
Last year.
What's your last name, sir?
McWee, ma'am.
You want to leave now?
No, ma'am.
You might want to rethink that. You get me? Good. So you're paid in cash and you don't pay taxes and you don't pay child support. You're supposed to pay your own rent.
I did. My half.
Well, you didn't pay, no, your own rent. Listen to me, Mr. 37 years old. You live in this country. You work for him. You're supposed to pay taxes like everybody else, which you don't do. You have children, 2, or maybe just 1. They come to visit you, and yet you have no fiscal responsibility for them. The rest of her lawsuit is, she says, A, she made a small loan to you for a lawyer. I'm not so interested in that, $199. But she said that you had no credit. Well, the reason you have no credit is because you allegedly have no income. So that she put all the utilities in her name. She put all the utilities in her name, left them in her name because she had no credit, and you didn't pay the bill, even when she was paying her half of the rent. Sir?
I was giving her half my check. She went over to my boss's house and received money from them.
You mean after she moved out?
After she moved out?
I'm talking about after she moved out.
After she moved out, I told her she threatened to turn everything off. I told her to go ahead and turn everything off.
Oh, she should have.
So?
And she didn't.
And she didn't.
And did you turn the lights on?
I
Listen to me. Did you turn the lights on?
Yes, I did.
Did you turn the stove on?
Yes,
did you
I did.
plug in a coffee maker?
Yes, I did.
So you used the juice. When you use the juice, you have to pay for it. Did you use the telephone?
Yes, I did.
If you use the telephone, you have to pay. If you're an American citizen and you use the roads and you use the other services that the government provides, you have to pay taxes. How much were your electric bills and service bills after you moved out? I'm talking about just for him.
Yes, the dish bill came to $292.23. I actually put a passcode on there around October 20th when I found out there was adult movies rented on there.
He had to do something to keep himself occupied. Next.
Sure West bill was $260.14.
Is that it?
Yes, and if you're not going to do the attorney bill.
No. $552, rounding it out, Byrd. Thank you. Is that right?
Yes.
No sense. Good. $552. Now, let's talk about the cruise, Mr. Ware. You told her to go ahead and book the cruise?
Cruise was planned before I met her. We had been talking about it amongst friends before she moved in, and her sister is a friend of my boss.
Did you tell her to go ahead and book the cruise?
No, I did not.
That's
I
not
told
what you said here, sir.
My boss's wife booked
That's not what you said here, sir, in your answer. Just because you broke up doesn't mean that you don't pay for half the cruise. You pay for half the cruise. What?
In order to get the cruise, you have to do double occupancy.
Don't speak to me sitting down.
Sorry, ma'am. We told them both prior to this going that if anything happened, that you have to pay double occupancy to get on this cruise in order to get all the cabins together. So I said, if something happens, you can't change it, you can't get the money back, and they were both aware of that.
You made that clear to both of them.
Correct.
Terrific. Thank you. You can sit down.
I gave Gerald every opportunity to go on that cruise.
Listen, it happens. He's got to pay for half the cruise because you're out the money. Do you understand?
No, I don't, but...
Well, it's very, very easy, sir. There's no way that you wanted to go on this cruise, and there's no way that you were going to share a cabin together. Somebody was going to go on the cruise. Now, it is my sense that if you said to her, I will give you the $2,000, I will go on the cruise instead of you, she would have said, great.
No.
She would have said to you, great. You go on the cruise, and I won't. But right now, she had $2,000 invested in this cruise, and she hadn't seen a penny from you.
Yes, she had, ma'am.
Oh, really? You paid for some?
I was giving her all my checks that I was receiving from him.
Checks?
To
You
pay
get cash?
for,
Listen to me.
well, cash, to pay for credit card bills that were outstanding when we
We're
met.
not talking credit card bills, sir.
That's
We're talking
how
about the cruise.
That's how the cruise was paid, on credit card.
How much money were you giving her?
I was receiving $500 a week.
In what?
In cash.
I love it when a game plan comes together. Just think of it this way, sir. It's your contribution to taxes. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,552.
Judge,
That's all.
I have some joy. I want to give back to his daughter.
Perfect. That's all. Thank you.
Ray Wood claims ex-girlfriend Mindy Golden had him falsely arrested for burglary. Mindy is countersuing, claiming Ray made false allegations to Child Protective Services.
Mr. Wood, this lady used to be your girlfriend, and I would assume that the person standing on your side is your brother. Is that right?
Yes.
It is your claim, Mr. Wood, that the defendants falsely reported that you were burglarizing their home, causing you to be arrested. You spent money on attorneys, and you want to be compensated for their false reporting of this burglary. Miss Golden and her brother say that you actually were in their home without permission, which is a burglary. They say that you retaliated by calling Child Protective Services and claiming that the two of them were using drugs in front of their children, in front of your children. Right. And in addition, Ms. Golden is counterclaiming because she said because of your action, she was fired from her job. She wants to be compensated for her lost wages. When did this unholy alliance begin?
June 2004.
Did you live together?
No.
Ever?
No.
Did you ever stay over?
Occasionally.
How many times a week, Mr. Wood?
Once, maybe twice.
Did you have a key?
At one time, yes.
Would you occasionally go over to the house and answer my question? I don't want you to think of where I'm going, Mr. Wood. All I want you to do is try to tell me the truth.
Okay.
The truth will set you free.
Okay.
Did you ever go over to the house and wait for her to come home?
Yes.
Went into the house by yourself?
Yes.
That happened frequently?
No.
In the course of the year and a half that you were together, did it happen 10 times?
No.
Happened 5 times?
Maybe, yes.
When you went over there and neither she nor her, prior to February of 2006, did anybody report that you were in the house without permission?
No.
Did you ever take anything that you weren't supposed to?
No, I did not.
Tell me what happened on February 17th, 2006.
It was about 7 o'clock in the evening, 7:15. I was in Binghamton, and I got a call from Mindy stating that her brother had caught me in the trailer. And she said that I didn't have any business being in there because we had broken up the previous week again.
It was longer.
Shh, shh. And what did you say to her?
What's going on? Why are you doing this? I'm in Binghamton. I haven't been in Windsor for over an hour. Why are you doing this? And she said, you were there. I'm going to see you in jail. I'm calling the troopers, and slammed the phone down.
Okay. Miss Golden, were you at home?
No, I was at work.
Your brother was at home?
Yes.
Your first name, sir?
Kevin.
Do you remember what day of the week the 17th of February was?
Remember the day? No, I don't.
Do you?
Yes, Tuesday.
Do you remember what time she called you?
7:45.
In the evening?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Golden. I want you to tell me what happened on the 17th of February.
I went out to eat.
No, look at me.
Oh, I went out to eat with my girlfriend, came home from dinner, proceeded to enter in the door, and when I bumped into Ray coming out as I was coming in.
He was coming out.
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you say to him and what did he say to you?
Just nothing. We were just both like, yeah. And I heard a hissing noise, and that was the propane. So I went to investigate that, and I turned around. By the time I fixed that, he was gone.
What was wrong with the propane?
It was unhooked from the tank. Hooks up to the trailer for heat and cooking.
And it's outside.
Outside, correct.
Now, when you went inside, what did you see?
Nothing really. It was dark.
No, inside the trailer, sir.
Oh, what did I see? Nothing really. He was coming out as I was going in.
Anything missing?
No, not to my knowledge, no.
Anything vandalized?
No.
The only thing unusual that you found was outside the trailer.
Correct.
Mr. Golden, I'm unclear, sir. Was Mr. Wood inside the house or outside the house?
Inside the house, ma'am.
Inside?
Yes.
Is there a key that you used to get inside the house?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you think Mr. Wood got inside the house?
Had his own key.
Did you have a key to the house?
No, I gave it back to Mindy.
I had asked for it back, and it took him a week to give it back to me.
So you got it back?
Yes, I did.
When, Mr. Wood, did you call Child Protective Services on the Goldens?
I didn't hear from the troopers for a week to 10 days on that charge. And so as soon as I left the troopers.
So you filed the charges with Child Protective Services after these charges were filed against you?
Yes.
No.
No?
No. I have
Really?
copies of the
That
reports
would've- you see,
the day that he was arrested, February 17th, against me and my brother.
After he was arrested. You have to stop trying to figure out where I'm going, madam. You're not that clever. When did you stop being involved in a relationship, Mr. Wood?
February 7th.
Had you been back to the house since February 7th?
No.
So all the information that you had on February 17th when you filed the charges with Child Protective Services, you had on the 7th when you left. Is
Yes.
that right? And I assume you filed the report with Child Protective Services, Mr. Wood, because you were concerned about the child.
Yes.
And you filed those charges indicating that there was drug use in the home.
Yes, I did.
Now, what were you doing between February 7th when you broke up and February 17th?
As far as what? I don't
I
understand.
want to know if you were incapacitated.
Oh, no.
I want to know if you were hospitalized.
No.
So you want to tell me, sir, why you waited from February 17th to report to Child Protective Services something that you must have felt very strongly about this drug use in front of a child, right?
Right.
So explain to me why you waited 10 days.
I thought maybe it would change.
So what told you that it wasn't going to change when they filed these burglary charges against you? Is that what you're telling me?
No.
You mean it was just a coincidence?
I thought maybe.
You mean it was just a coincidence?
Yes.
That the charges were filed on the same day with Child Protective Services as the charges for burglary were filed against you?
Yes.
That's a coincidence, sir, that I find very hard to swallow. Because if someone is legitimately concerned about the welfare of a child, how old is your child?
He's 3 now. He was 2.
About a 3-year-old child that has no voice, then I assume that this drug use has been going on for a long time, right?
Yes.
That you would have reported it immediately, right?
Right.
You chose to wait serendipitously on the same day as you were arrested for burglary to report it to Child Protective Services.
Yes.
That would be unfortunate. Now, let us move on to your counterclaim.
Yes, ma'am.
Go.
He had filed another report against myself and my daughter's father. So 2 separate reports to Child
What were you
Protective.
doing with your daughter's father?
Nothing. He doesn't even know my daughter's father.
Well, what did he allege you were doing?
The same thing.
Did you ever smoke marijuana in front of your child?
No, ma'am.
Did your brother?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, you would know that, right?
I would hope so.
Let's get to the counterclaim.
Honestly, I just want him to leave me alone. And I wouldn't have filed the counterclaim if he hadn't done this.
Okay, so you're going to withdraw the counterclaim because you want me to deal with his claim of false arrest?
Please.
Mr. Wood, I believe you were there. How about that?
I wasn't there.
I believe you were. I don't see any other reason, sir. I understand that the grand jury refused to indict you, probably because you really didn't do anything while you were there except maybe pull apart the propane so that they would run out of gas. That's what you did. I don't necessarily believe that he saw you inside the house, but I believe that he saw you there. I don't know what you were angry at, but I believe that he saw you there. And I believe that you retaliated, and you retaliated by filing charges against both of them for drug use I believe that that's an inappropriate way to conduct yourself if you were legitimately concerned about the welfare of an infant. And what you do is you report those concerns immediately to protective services, and you don't wait until you have an axe to grind to do it. That's not what Child Protective Services is there for. So I believe that you were there on the 17th of February. I don't think that you were there to burglarize the house. And by the way, Miss Golden, you want him to leave you alone? He better leave you alone. Did you file for a protective order?
Yes, I did. And
Do you have one?
I did. It ran out, but he was leaving me alone, so I didn't renew it.
How long did you have it for?
6 months.
So now he's leaving you alone?
Yes.
Perfect. Let it remain that way. The lawsuit's dismissed, sir. You were there on the 17th of February. I believe you were there. That's all.
56-year-old Candace Harris is suing her ex-boyfriend, 32-year-old Frank Boswell, for an unpaid loan and for trading in a Camaro that didn't belong to him. Candace claims Frank is a scammer.
Ms. Harris, you met the defendant online. Is that how you met him?
Correct, Your Honor.
And according to what I read, you began a relationship with him, and at some point, according to you, you let him borrow a car that you had that you weren't using.
Correct.
And he had the car for many months. The relationship soured. You went to get the car and found out that Mr. Boswell had forged your name to the title of the car and either sold or traded it in for something else.
That's correct.
You also claim that you loaned him some money before this in 2005, and I'm telling you right now, Ms. Harris, I'm not entertaining that. Because according to what you said in your complaint, you sent him this money with the understanding that when he got back on his feet, he would pay you back.
Correct.
That's what you said. Mr. Boswell is going to tell me he never got back on his feet. That's not a loan. It has to be objective, not subjective. Mr. Boswell will tell some people he's on his feet and tell other people that he's not on his feet. You have children, sir?
Yes, I do.
How many?
One.
That child live with you?
No.
You pay child support?
Yes.
As much as the mother of that child wants?
No.
Right. Because you're not really on your feet. See what I mean? Things are very predictable in this life. I could have written this script before I even asked him a question. Now, when did you let Mr. Boswell borrow your car?
He came to see me on September 29th in 2005. It was at my house for many months being unused.
So you let Mr. Boswell borrow it. What was the arrangement?
The arrangement was that he would use my car. He was trying to get his career started in music, rap business, and it would be a nice car for him to drive with a little bit more prestige maybe than what the vans he had. And we never discussed when I would get it back. However, in March...
After he got on his feet.
Yes. In March, I discovered there was other women involved in his life besides me who were also helping him out financially till he got on his feet.
I could have also told you that.
Yes, ma'am. And it escalated to the point where more and more women started showing up. On June 20th was when he sold the car. I have the documents here that show
Now,
that it was...
Mr. Boswell, how much did you sell the car for, sir?
I actually didn't sell the car. I traded the car.
How much did they give you for it?
They just traded me another car straight across.
Really?
Yeah,
But you forged her name to the title.
I did that.
You can't do that, Mr. Boswell.
Why would someone give me a car and give me the title if they loaned it to me?
Who paid for the insurance?
She did.
And whose name was the insurance in?
Isn't it hers?
You got my message? It's her car. If she meant to pass title to you, she would have signed the title over to you, and then you would have insured the car in your name.
Then why,
Now!
Then why did she give me the title in
Are
the first
you
place?
asking me a question, smarty pants?
Yes,
Don't you
I am.
ask me a question, sir. I ask the questions, you give the answers. I want to tell you, you may find a lot of women that find you attractive. I am not one of them.
No. I can dig that.
I'm glad you can. What kind of car do you have now?
1990 Lexus LS400.
How many miles did it have on it when you took
276.
it? 276
Yeah.
miles? Is that your car?
No,
ma'am.
her car.
My car
her car was a Camaro.
It had 126,000 miles. It was a 95 Camaro.
When I traded it, it had 143,000 miles on it.
What's the blue book value of your car, madam?
It is, Your Honor. It's $4,025.
Is that in good, fair?
That's the medium. It's in the good condition.
Okay. Now, Miss Harris, you seem like an intelligent lady.
I would hope so.
You know the old saying, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck? Did you ever hear that expression?
Yes, ma'am.
If it walks like a deadbeat and looks like a deadbeat, it's a deadbeat. You're supposed to know the difference at your stage in life.
Correct.
Do you understand? Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,000. That's all.
24-year-old Nicole Johnson is suing her neighbor, 23-year-old Sally Jones, for the cost to fix her car. Nicole claims Sally's son, 5-year-old Darian, scratched her paint job with rocks.
Miss Johnson, your complaint is that Miss Jones's son, that would be this little tyke over here, vandalized your car with some sort of an implement. You want her to pay for the damage. Miss Jones says, well, she's not sure if her son did it, and if he did it, he had an accomplice of similar age, and why aren't you suing the accomplice too? That's your defense.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Miss Jones, let me ask you this question. If you believe that your son was responsible for part of the damage, you would acknowledge that and would be prepared to pay for part of the damage. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes, ma'am.
What proof do you have that Miss Jones's son, because you didn't see it, vandalized your car?
I have a witness who says she saw him do it.
Okay. When did this happen?
July 11th at approximately 7:30, 8 a.m.
And the witness that you had would be this little girl?
Mm-hmm.
And she's 5?
Yes.
Whose child is she?
One of our other neighbors. Her name's Angela Twyman.
And what's her name?
Michaela.
Michaela, would you like to come up and talk to me?
There you go. Okay. You all right? Okay.
Hi, Michaela. Do you know who I am? You don't know? Do you know why you're here? And you don't know why you're here. Who did you come with today? Oh, I see this is going to be interesting. Do you know this little boy? Is he a friend of yours? Do you know Miss Jones? Is she a neighbor of yours? Can you talk? Can you tell me your full name? Let me hear.
Michaela.
And what's your last name, Michaela?
Michaela and Twyman.
Do you want to talk to me about what happened with Miss Johnson's car? You want to tell me what happened? Okay, tell me what happened.
He spit on the car.
He spit on the car? Did you see him do that? Did you see him do anything else to the car, Michaela? What else did you see him do?
He scratched it.
What did he scratch it with?
A rock.
Did you see him with the rock in his hand? Did you have a rock in your hand? Was anybody else with him when he had the rock in his hand?
No.
But you're sure you saw him scratch the car with a rock? After you saw him scratch the car, Michaela, did you go and tell anybody? Who did you tell?
His parents.
His parents? Oh, did you tell them right away? Okay. You can go and sit down now. Thank you. Michaela came and told you that about that?
No, ma'am.
She never came and told you that?
No, ma'am.
Did she tell you?
I called. I assume that from the way the marks are, they're huge, just circles, scribbles, they're all at very low positions. I assumed it was a child, and I assumed that if I asked enough children, one of them would tell on the other. So I called her parents and I said, you know, later on today when the kids are home, please ask them if they saw anyone playing around Miss Nikki's car. And in the background, I could hear her say, I did, I saw Darian. And her mom said, well, will you do me a favor? Will you go outside and on Mommy's car, will you touch the spots that you saw him touching on Miss Nikki's car? And she said, okay. She's touching the hood, the driver's side door, and the passenger door on the same side as the driver's side. And she said, is that right? And I said, yeah, that's exactly where the damage is.
Tell me your name.
Darian.
Darian, I want you to come up here and sit up here and talk to me. Trouble, a handful.
Yes, thank you. I do know that.
A handful.
Okay. Tell the judge, okay?
Me and Michaela did it.
You and Michaela both did it? Well, tell me how that happened, Darian.
Me and Michaela had rocks.
Well, how many rocks did you have in your hand?
1.
And where did you get the rock from?
Off the ground.
And what about Michaela? Did she have a rock too?
Yeah.
So why did you decide to scratch Miss Johnson's car?
I don't know.
Well, does your mom have a car?
Yeah, gray.
Hmm?
Gray.
She has a gray car. Darian, if you saw children scratching your mother's car, would you be angry with them? Because that's not the right thing to do, right? And your mommy would be very upset that somebody scratched her car, wouldn't she? She would be sad. Are you ever going to do that again? Because you know you can get into trouble for doing that to other people's property, right? How many marks did you make on the car? And how many marks did Michaela make on the car? So you made more marks than Michaela. Did Michaela make bigger marks than you or littler marks than you? She made smaller marks than you. Show me with your hands how big were the marks that you made on the car. Big ones. And she made little ones. Is that right? She made little ones, and show me your size. The ones you made were bigger ones. Now, when your mom asked you about Miss Johnson's car, did you tell her the truth right away?
My dad.
You told your dad the truth right away? And what did you tell him?
I scratched it.
And when did you tell your mom and your dad that Michaela was there too?
I didn't tell him. I only told my dad.
When did you tell your dad that Michaela was there too? Did you tell him right away, or did you tell him later?
Right away.
Go and step down. I have a feeling he did a little more damage than Michaela did, but my sense is that Michaela was there. Made a few little marks. Miss Johnson, I know that you don't like to believe it, but cute little Michaela scratched your car. Didn't do as much damage as this little guy did. And in his own 5-year-old way, he really told me the truth about that, because I don't know how many scratches were on the car, but clearly he said he did more than she did. And when I asked him, you saw, how big were her scratches? He said, well, they were really teeny. Mine were bigger. Well, one gets the sense that at least he's telling the truth, that there was some co-participation.
And she said that she helped him wipe them off with the spit so that he wouldn't get into trouble. That's what she told her mom.
Oh, okay.
She said, I helped, he spit all over the car, and I helped him rub them off, but they weren't coming off.
Okay. So you get it, that Michaela's folks have to be responsible for some of the damage to the car.
I also have rental car receipts because they said it's going to take 4 to 5 days. So I have $182.04 because they won't do it on the weekend, not all of it, and I work about 45 minutes from home.
Okay.
So I have a rental car receipt for $182.04.
$422, that's half. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $422. Thank you.
Thank you.
Smart, but a handful, Miss Jones.
Thank you.
23-year-old Erin King is suing her former roommate, 21-year-old Avian Moses, for stopping payment on a rent check. Avian claims Erin kicked her out after 2 weeks of living together.
Miss King, the defendant was your roommate for a short period of time. It is your claim that she moved out after an argument that you had, and she put a stop payment on her rent check.
Yes.
You want your rent.
Right.
And the defendant says that you kicked her out of the apartment, and therefore she doesn't have to pay you any rent. Miss Moses, you moved into Miss King's apartment?
Yes, ma'am.
When?
I moved in approximately August the 4th, I believe, around the beginning of August.
Was it August 4th?
August 5th.
And you knew each other before?
Yes, we did.
Through college.
What was the rental arrangement?
The rental arrangement was that we would both split the rent equally, $305, including utilities. She was supposed to pay me on the 3rd of each month.
So far, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
When did she move out?
She moved out November the 14th.
Had she paid you November's rent?
Well, she wrote me a check when I went to the bank to cash it.
That's the rent check that she stopped paying.
Right, and I have that as well.
Okay, so that was November 14th. So far you were in the apartment from November the 3rd to November the 14th.
Yes.
So you should have paid rent.
Yes.
On what date did you give her the rent?
Probably the 7th. It was after the time that I was supposed to give it to her. Oh, yes, ma'am, the 7th.
Why were you late with your rent?
Well, a week before that, my purse had gotten stolen, and I didn't have a bank card. I had to change all my accounts, and during this time when I was changing the numbers and all, getting everything straight, I informed Erin of this. I said, I don't have a checkbook, I don't have a bank card. I said, can I just pay you next week once my accounts are in order? She said, yes, no problem. I said, I'll pay you a late fee. She said, okay, no problem, and I did so.
You paid her the rent?
Yes, and a late fee.
Which you owed her?
Yes.
And the late fee?
Yes.
Now, why did you stop payment on the check?
Me and Erin had been having problems living together for about a month. She was in an abusive relationship. It was constant fighting in the apartment. Her boyfriend would come over, get high, smoke weed, hit on me. She'd leave him in there. She gave him a key to the apartment. She would constantly fight with me over food, saying I was stealing from her. We got into a physical altercation, and I decided this was the last straw. She was not on the lease and to get out of her house. So I said, gladly, I'll stop paying my rent check, and I'll leave your house immediately.
Well, you can't do that. A, you didn't tell her you were stopping payment on the rent check.
I did tell her I was stopping payment on my rent check.
Really? No.
She
You didn't
called
even
me.
say that in your answer, that you told her you would leave
She
immediately.
called me that same day, and I told her I was stopping payment on my rent check, and I was moving out.
You may have told her that after she called you on the phone, but when you had the argument with her in the house...
No, she told me to leave. She told me this was her apartment and to leave.
On the phone or in person?
No, when we had our physical altercation.
I understand that. not putting on your listening ears.
I'm sorry.
At the time you had this altercation and this argument, you did not say to her, I'm putting a stop payment on the rent check. According to you, you told her over the phone that you were putting a stop payment on the rent.
I apologize for not mentioning that, but I did tell her at the point when we were after the physical altercation, the police that came, I told her that I was leaving and I was stopping payment on my rent check.
Well, you can't.
Okay.
You can't. Unless, of course, she changed the locks.
Yes, that's exactly what she did.
When did you change the locks?
I changed the locks on the 14th. That was because she had been going through my belongings. She had actually stole from...
Just a second. You can't change the locks and ask for rent at the same time.
Well, I actually changed the locks after she did the stop payment on the check. After they gave me the check back from the bank, I went to the bank on the 11th. They told me at the bank I need to take this check back to Ms. Moses. They couldn't tell me why because it was concerning her account. After I left the bank, I said, Avian, I just left the bank. They gave me the check. She said, I'm not paying you anything. I'm moving out.
That's not correct.
And so after that, I later discovered that she had been in my room while I was out of the apartment.
Ms. King, can't have it both ways. If you change the locks on the apartment, making it impossible for her to come back to the apartment, you can't charge her for rent for the entire month.
She did come back to the apartment. After we got into the argument on that Sunday, the police came.
Who called the police?
She did. Even though she started the altercation, she was threatening me with an alcohol bottle, saying that she was going to hit me upside my head with it. While the police was there, I said, it's fine. She can stay, you know, for the next 3 weeks. It won't be any problems. She left that Sunday. She actually came back that Monday and spent the night, even after she told me that she was moving out, and she had started to move her stuff out.
When did she finally move the last bit of property out of the house?
She didn't finish moving out because after I had the locks changed, I called her and I let her know that I had the locks changed and to call me and make arrangements to get the rest of her belongings. I guess she was angry because I had the locks changed, and she said, well, you're stealing my property. She was with her mother. I said, no, you can come in and get your stuff. I even gave her mother a futon cover that was in the living room and a financial aid paper. I guess, you know, it has her financial information. I kept telling them, please come in and get the rest of your stuff. I even, you know, gave them that. I wasn't...
When did she take it out, or did she still not?
She left after I gave her mother the futon cover and the Norfolk State financial aid booklet. They said, we don't want the rest of the stuff. We're leaving, and they left it. And so she left a bed, a dresser,
Did you leave
clothing.
a bed and a dresser there?
Yes.
Ma'am, because yes, I did, because she wouldn't allow me to get it. She changed the locks.
Listen to me. You didn't sue her, did you, for your stuff?
Yes, I did. And the court ordered her to give it back to me, and I didn't get it back until January the 1st of 2007.
Oh, so you did sue her. This is not the first time you've been in small claims court.
No, ma'am.
Really? I got it. Miss King, you're only entitled to half a month's rent. Change the locks. But you're entitled to half a month's rent. $152.50.
Okay.
Right? That's what your half a month's rent is.
Yes.
And that's what you offered to pay her.
Yes, I did. She said she didn't want it.
$152.50. Absolutely right. That's all. Judgment for the plaintiff.
Krista Llewellyn is suing her stepfather, Ernest Flowers, for money loaned and the cost of a computer. Ernest says that Krista breached their contract.
Miss Llewellyn, this is your stepfather.
Yes, ma'am.
It is your claim that you made a couple of loans to your stepfather.
Correct.
One of them was to purchase a computer that he was supposed to pay off within a year.
Correct.
According to you. And the second loan was for what?
For a $600 post-dated check that he had, and he got into an accident, and they fell kind of behind on their bills. So he asked me to borrow the money, and I said sure, as long as he paid me back, because he had borrowed money before.
And that was $600?
Yes, ma'am.
And how much is owed on the computer?
$671.
Mr. Flowers, why in the world would you borrow money from your child?
First off, for the laptop, she had and her husband had an account with Dell, and it was purchased on that account because I could not get credit through Dell. I explained to her that I would make the payments faithfully, which I have.
Show me.
There's 3 months worth of payments. It shows that each month the payment was taken out.
When was it purchased?
It was purchased in February of 2006.
You're just showing me 3 months worth of payments.
Yes, ma'am. That's all the further back that I can go with my bank.
No, but you can get a statement from them as to how much you owe. How much was the computer?
I believe $2,000.
No.
How much was it?
A little over $1,000, like $1,029, $1,039.
Is that there?
Well, I have a printout from Dell, yeah.
Can I see it, please?
Everything.
So the computer was purchased in 2006.
Yes, ma'am.
March of 2006?
Yes.
Well, you know, you're never going to pay this thing off. What's the interest on it?
$25 every month, and I told them that.
You pay $50 a month towards the computer. Only $25 of that goes to the computer. You know what's going to happen? Mr. Flowers, the computer's going to break, and you're going to say, I'm not paying for a computer that I don't have anymore. By the way you're going, you won't be paying for this computer until 2010.
Those were the payments that were set up with her when it was purchased.
Is that right?
Those were the payments set up with me, but they told me within a year they would have it paid off. And I also have a statement from my husband because he talked to him also and said that it would be paid off in a year because we purchased a computer and paid it off within a year.
Did you tell her you'd have it paid off within a year?
No, ma'am, I didn't.
Well, I accept this because it's a notarized statement for someone in the military and your husband is in Iraq.
Right.
He says that it was supposed to be paid off within a year.
I was in a car accident on June the 13th and planned on, when I got my settlement, of clearing that bill.
And?
And I have not received the settlement yet, so...
Well, when do you intend to get that, sir?
I have no idea. It is in the lawyer's hands right now.
Fine. As soon as you get it, you have to pay off the $671.
Yes, ma'am.
But he has been paying, according to this, he has been paying it every month.
Mhm.
So next time, don't let anybody use your credit.
Correct.
I can't do anything about the computer. Now tell me about this other check, sir, for $600.
When Krista and her husband first came back from Germany and Krista moved in with my wife and I, a couple days after they moved in, I'm not sure exactly when the date was. I know the date they moved in was June the 15th.
And she pays you rent.
She was paying $200 every 2 weeks.
So she was paying you $400 a month rent,
Yes, ma'am.
which covered what?
As far as the rent on the house that I rent, it's $725, so...
So she was paying more than half of the rent that you were paying.
Yes, and she was not asked any money for the electricity, power,
So
or
who
gas.
cares? So who cares?
And she wasn't
Who cares?
asked any money to help with the food. or
That's not
anything.
true. I was asked for money for the utilities, and I have proof, and I also have a witness that she couldn't pay her utilities the first month that I moved in. So when I moved in on June 15th, I gave her $400.
She give you money for utilities when she first moved in?
Gave him $400.
She gave me nothing, ma'am.
You gave it to who?
I gave it to him and my mother.
What about food?
I bought my own food. I have an 11-monthly baby food, and I have an 11-year-old, and I purchased my own food.
So she's paying you sufficient rent to live with you? Nice that she was paying you rent at all. My children, when they come home, never pay rent. Most don't. So I still don't understand the $600 loan.
Before he left, he and I were out in the garage, and he handed me $600 and said that he wanted me to take care of the payday loan that I had.
Your Honor.
Shh. Go ahead.
I explained to him at the time that I did not have the money to pay him back for that, and he said that was not a problem, that they had gotten extra money out of their taxes, and he wanted to help us out because we were helping out by having Krista live there while he was over in Iraq.
Sounded like she was helping you out. Sounds to me, Mr. Flowers, as if you were in certain financial distress, because if you took out a payday loan, it means you didn't have money to cover your own bills. Otherwise, people don't take out a payday loan. And she was paying more than half of the rent on your house. So I don't know who was helping whom. Certainly, I didn't see you doing anything for her. Her mother helped out with the baby, not you. I don't see what she got out of living with you.
As far as I'm concerned, I was at work. I worked 9-10 hours a day.
You don't make enough money, sir, and your expenses exceeded what you earn. She was helping you out.
And at the time out in the garage when her husband gave me the money,
It's not what he says
that
here.
was a gift.
It's not what he says. It's not what he says in his notarized statement, sir.
Your Honor.
I can't help that.
It's not what he says in his notarized statement. In any event, you should have been able to take care of yourself. You're a grown man. You don't take money from your children. You owe her the $600. What else?
$180.42 for a gun that he had in pawn.
Well, tell me, that's curious. I want you to tell me when you got it out of the pawn shop for him.
I got it out on September 6th of '07. I went in with my sister because she was paying a pawn, and I saw his gun in the case actually for sale. So my mother's not such a nice woman. She just pawns his stuff for money and doesn't tell him sometimes. And I like Ernest. I think he's a really nice guy. And I mean, without her, he's a really nice guy. So I called him and I said, Ernest, did you know that you are going to lose your gun, that it's for sale? And he said, I didn't know that. And I said, the guy said that you could get it for $180.
Did she call you from the pawn shop?
She called me from the pawn shop, but she stated that the reason why she was calling was because the gentleman at the pawn shop had gotten strict instructions from me when I dropped it off there that he was not to release it to anybody but me.
He admits to owing me for the gun, though.
No, because
Yes, he does.
I
I
didn't
have-
ask you to go pick the
I
gun
have
up.
a statement that he sent to small claims court saying that he owed me for the gun and for the dog.
Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Good.
He admits to owing me for the gun.
It says, do you agree that you owe the plaintiff money? Yes. If yes, how much do you agree that you owe? $344. I want you to look at this, sir. Did you remember you filled this out?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
But it says that you owe her then for the vet bill and the $180 for the gun.
Because she had asked me afterwards to be paid back, and because of the fact that she was nice enough to do that, I was going to pay her back to be nice.
Good. Now,
but then,
perfect.
Then she
So you
files
pay
this
it back to be nice. Good. So far you owe $780. Anything else?
Yes, I would like the return of my rent because I paid them rent on the 1st of October, and on the 3rd, they threw me out. They had my stuff packed. They gave me 5 minutes to get my stuff. They kept some of my stuff. They broke some of my stuff.
Why did they throw you out?
Because my mother's got split personalities, and she's just crazy. She's not
Why
the
did you
same
throw her
person
out?
from day to day.
The specific reasons I don't know. All I know is I got a phone call from my wife stating that Krista's attitude was to the point to where she wasn't willing to deal with it anymore.
Fine. So
and
you owe her rent.
No, ma'am, because of the fact that the extra utilities that were used.
Forget the extra utilities. It's ridiculous, Mr. Flowers. She paid you the rent the 1st of the month, and you threw her out the 3rd of the month. You owe her rent.
We did not throw her out. She was given the opportunity to either stay or drop her attitude.
No.
She chose to leave.
You can't have a tenant, and you have to make up your mind whether you treat somebody as a tenant or your child. If you treat her as rent from her, if you treat her as a tenant, and you tell her, well, I don't like your attitude, either you have to drop your attitude or you have to move out. That's throwing her out. Can't have it both ways. She has her $200 rent back. That's $980. Anything else?
No.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $980. Thank you. That's all.
Robert McCullough is suing a former bandmate of his daughter's friend, Joseph Bongiorno, for the return of his musical equipment.
Mr. McCullough, it is your claim that the defendant has a piece of music equipment that belongs to you.
Actually, 2 pieces, Your Honor.
An amp and something else.
And a controller for it, yes.
The defendant acknowledges that he has the equipment. He said it's his. You gave it to him.
Okay.
That's your defense, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Where is it?
It is currently in my possession at my home.
How long do you know the plaintiff?
Mr. McCullough, I met back in November of 2008.
How did you meet him?
I met him through Matthew Clooney, the plaintiff's witness. I'd been in a band with them since early, probably November of 2007.
So you met him through your bandmate?
Yes.
Now, tell me the circumstances of how this perfect stranger to you, someone with whom you had no relationship with, no business dealings with, correct? Mm-hmm. Gave you what he says, valuable pieces of equipment worth in excess of $1,000.
I went to his house with Matt Clooney, and he said Matt had previously called me saying that Mr. McCullough had an amplification system for me to use, and I went to
use an amp system for you to use.
It was given to me, yes.
No, you first said he had an amp system for you to use. Mm-hmm. Those are the words that you just said. Is that right, sir?
No, ma'am.
No, of course it's right. You want me to play it back for you?
No, thank
What you said was, Matt called you and said that Mr. McCullough had amp equipment for you to use. Then you quickly changed the word use for you to have. But the first word you used was use, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So what did you do?
I took the equipment from Mr. McCullough.
What was the agreement? What did he say to you, and what did you say to him?
Well, when it was given to me or handed over to me, there was no agreement saying that I had to return the equipment.
Tell me what he said to you.
What he said to me was, you can have this equipment and use it, you know, tell me what you think about it, and that was what was said.
Did you use it?
Yes.
Did you tell him what you thought about it?
No, I did not.
Then you have to give it back. He gave it to you to use, and he said to you, I want you to use this and tell me what you think about it. There's your contract, if I believe you. You never told him what you thought about the equipment.
No, I did not.
You got to give it back. Now. The fact that you're angry because you're no longer in the band doesn't mean you don't return the equipment. Do you understand, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Within 5 days, sir, you get your equipment back.
Your Honor, just one quick thing I'd like to interject, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What would be the recourse I'd have the 2 pieces of equipment?
Do you have the 2 pieces of equipment?
Yes, ma'am.
He has them.
Okay.
And they're to be returned to him in good condition. Otherwise, he can bring you back here. Do you understand? You don't want to be back here because you've already embarrassed yourself. So you got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. That's all. Thank you.
Parties are excused.
Terry Taylor is suing her foster daughter, 20-year-old Christy Tomier, for SUV payments, parking tickets, and impound fees.
Ms. Taylor, the defendant is your former foster child.
That's correct.
She came to live with you as a teenager for a period of time, and you continued a relationship with her, according to your complaint, so that she felt comfortable enough to come back into your home subsequently, and you agreed at some point to co-sign for a truck for her so that she would be independent and be able to go to work and go to school and do stuff. So you did. And it was her understanding and your agreement, and your contract, that she was going to make the payments on this truck. Take your hands out of your pockets. She was going to make the payments on this truck. Well, the defendant did make payments on the truck for a period of time. She met a boy, got married, had a baby, not necessarily in that order, but she and her husband subsequently separated, and she stopped making payments on the truck. Not only did she stop making payments on the truck, but she couldn't find the right place to park, so she got some parking tickets, and ultimately her car was impounded, probably for those parking tickets. You were contacted by the bank. Cost you a whole bunch of money to get the car out of towing to pay off the car, and you want her to be responsible and take care of those bills. That's what the case is about.
Correct.
Right?
That's correct.
Go.
I paid on the car for 2 years, paid $3,000 on it. Up until 9/16 was my September, October, November, December. I missed 4 payments in a row.
You missed 4
payments in a row.
Okay. When was the last time you made a payment? In September?
August.
So you missed September?
Yes.
October, November, and December?
Yes.
You missed 4 months.
On Christmas Eve, I thought the vehicle was stolen because I went out to go home for the weekend, and the car was gone. And it was just odd. I thought that they had taken it back because the payments were late. And the night before...
No, they weren't late. They weren't made for 4 months. Late is when you miss a couple of days.
I wasn't working when my husband and I were married. He up and left one day. Since that point, I know it seems like I was irresponsible. Since that point, I got a place to live on my own, by myself, with no financial help.
Well, that is great. Why'd you get parking tickets? Because that's why the car was towed.
Because I parked in the wrong spot.
How many times?
Twice. And then I got another parking lot ticket down the street for being there for a meter or whatever. I got 2 more of those. So I had quite a few parking tickets.
How many?
I think 5 total, maybe 4.
How many?
I have 8
parking tickets.
Different kinds of tickets.
Yes.
Can I see it?
They're listed on the...
And when I found out the car had been taken, I still had 30 days to come up with the money. I called her 4 days later to let her know what happened, and I told her that I would come up with the money to get the car out, and I would do my best to start making payments on it again. She had told me
Doing your best doesn't help.
Take
your hands out of your pockets. Doing your best doesn't help. I mean, I'm not screaming and ranting and raving at you. If your husband left you and left you with a baby and you were trying to get yourself together and you found a place to live, all of that is great. Then what you have to say to her, Ms. Tomier, is, and I know that you're looking upset, but what you have to say to her is, look.
I still had time to make the payments before she made the payments for me.
She's a co-signer on your loan. Her credit is destroyed because you didn't make payments for 4 months.
I still
did
had
you
time.
call?
Yes,
you didn't have. You don't
I
have
did.
time.
The bank said I still had 30 days, and so did the repound place.
You don't have time when you miss payments for 4 months. What you're supposed to do is, if you can, renegotiate with them and say, listen, I can't make these payments. Could I cut them in half? Could I cut them in a quarter? Things are difficult now. But you didn't do that. You didn't do that. And you didn't even call her and tell her that...
I did call her.
Did you call her and tell her you hadn't made the payment September, October,
We talked
November?
many times about it. Yes, we did, because we talked many times, and she's like, Christy, you just need to call him. And I said, I know, I haven't made the payments. And
Just
she
a
just need to
second.
call him.
I know, I haven't made the payments. That's not what she said to you. She said you have to call them and try to redo something with this loan.
And I did that, and I still had time before she paid up the money.
Just a second. Show me. You show me something in writing that the bank was willing to give you more time after you missed 4 payments. Show me.
They told me I don't have that.
Don't tell me what they told you. Show
I don't
me.
have that.
Of course you don't. And now after she got the car out of towing, because I have the bills, she got the car out of towing, and she paid the bank off.
So my 30 days
Just
that I have doesn't matter?
Listen to me. I'm not telling you had 30 days. You can't show me that you had 30 days. Now that she had to get your car out of impound, which cost how much?
$360.
Okay, $360. In addition to what you owed them for 4 months. And the tickets.
Which were $695.
$695 for the tickets. Otherwise, you couldn't get the car out of impound. Do you understand? The likelihood of you having $1,100.
I had that money within 11 days.
$1,100 plus the 4 months that you owe them on the car is little to none.
I had the money to pay it all off within 11 days. I still have 30 days.
Then you should have paid her.
But I lost thousands of dollars. I'm paying for taxis. I don't have a vehicle. How should I have paid her?
Listen to me. If you had take your hands out of your pockets. If you had said to her before now, what's your first name?
Terry.
Terry, I appreciate everything you did for me. I understand what the problem is. I understand that I screwed up with you. May not have screwed up with other things, but I understand that I screwed up with you and your credit. I can give you $50 a month towards what I owe you for cleaning up after my mess. I don't want you to be out of money. I can't pay you all at once. I have other expenses to pay. I have other bills. I'll give you $50 a month. That's what you should do.
I tried calling her twice, and both times I got hung up on.
What did you say to her when you called?
The first time I called to tell her that the car wasn't stolen, that it had been repossessed, and I told her that within 3 weeks I would be able to get it out. 2 days later, she paid for it all to get out. So I not only lost the car, I lost a lot of money. And then I called her again right after I found out I was getting sued, and I was just like, "You're suing me. You haven't even, you know, we can't work this out any other way." And she said, "No, we want our money back. You have 30 days to pay us or we're suing you." But I still had time on my account. Within 11 days, I could have had the vehicle out.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,089. That's all.
Salminio Moten is suing his ex-fiancée, Andrea Umerski, for the return of a laptop. Andrea claims Salminio gave her the computer before he was deployed to Iraq.
Mr. Moten, it is your claim that the defendant, who is your former girlfriend, has a computer that belongs to you. You want it back.
Yes, Your Honor.
The defendant says that you gave her the computer a long time ago. It was a gift. It was a second computer that you had. You had bought yourself a new one. She has a counterclaim for a whole bunch of nonsense. How old is this computer, Mr. Moten?
3 years old, Your Honor.
When did you buy yourself a new computer, Mr. Moten?
2008, Your Honor.
Why did you buy yourself a new computer?
Because I was getting deployed to Iraq, and the old computer, it was old and it was slower than my new computer. So I felt I needed more storage.
And you were taking the new computer to Iraq?
Yes, for business matters.
So you bought yourself a new one. And at that time, you were involved with the defendant?
Yes, Your Honor.
She was your girlfriend?
She was my girlfriend at that point, Your Honor.
Tell me about when he gave you the computer.
When he came back home on leave, we were scheduled to be married, and he gave me the computer when he left back.
What did he say?
He didn't really say much. I mean, he just left it for me because he had a new computer. He didn't need it anymore.
What did he say to you?
There was no specific that, I mean, I recall that he said he just gave me the computer. We jointly lived together. I mean, I have a text message stating that I can have the computer after we broke up.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
If the screen goes blank, you can just press the OK button.
Byrd is the button presser.
That would be his number listed below, his cell phone number.
It's cool to keep the laptop. Just give me my mail and my clothes. Did you send that to her?
I think so, Your Honor. Yes, I did.
So?
Well, at that point in time, I felt like at that point in time, I had no way of getting my laptop. I had to get...
Just a second. You went to Iraq, you came back, you broke up. The reasons for it are irrelevant to me. And when you came back, you asked her for the computer.
Yes, Your Honor.
And she said to you, you gave it to me.
No, she said, for me to give you my computer, you have to give me $400 for her ring.
And you said what?
I said, I don't owe you for the ring because I...
Fine. You said, I don't owe you for the ring. That's part of a counterclaim. I don't have to hear that just yet. But at some point, she had your mail and your clothes.
Yes, Your Honor.
So you said to her, it's okay, keep the laptop, which she's now had in her possession for over a year, correct?
Yes.
Keep the laptop, just give me my mail and my clothes. That's what you wrote. Did you get your mail?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you get your clothes?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Well, then she keeps the computer.
Well,
you
no,
made a bargain with her. You said, give me my mail, give me my clothes, you keep the laptop. You got your mail, you got your clothes, she keeps the laptop.
She was asking to keep the laptop because she needed internet access for her and her kids. I was being generous by letting her keep it, but...
Well, you were being generous by letting her keep it. That's what you said. Mr. Moten, were you out of the country serving your country at war?
Yes, Your Honor.
You saw lots of them?
Yes, I did.
You don't have to go back anymore, do you?
No, not at this point, Your Honor.
Great. And you're home safe and sound, right?
Yes.
And we're talking about a computer that was so old and slow that you got rid of it, that you bought yourself a new one.
Yes.
Right?
I did, Your Honor.
Just a second. Old, slow, you bought yourself a new one. You know how many old computers I have in my house? My husband says they're too slow. I said, where are you going? That it has to be faster. But you got yourself a faster one, right?
Yes, I did.
Right? And you came home safe and sound. What are you bothering with minutiae for? What are you bothering with nonsense for, Mr. Moten? Especially when you said so, giving my mail and my clothes and keep the laptop.
Well, I had important files on my laptop that I really wanted.
And you did without them for almost 2 years now, right?
Yes.
You'll do it without them for another 20.
I asked her to put it on a hard drive.
And did she?
No, she wanted to keep the whole laptop.
Just a second. Did he ask you to store some stuff for him?
No.
No, of course not. He's making it up as he's going along. Forget it, Mr. Moten. You got home safe and sound. You gave her the computer probably before you left because you got yourself a new one. That's what boyfriends do for their girlfriends. They say, here, let the kids use this one. Let the kids play games on this one because I got one that's faster, that's got more memory, that's got this. And then when you broke up, now you want your computer back. Well, and she's not going to give it to you. She's not going to give it to you because you gave it to her. Not once, probably, but twice. Now let's get to your nonsense counterclaim.
Okay. Your Honor, when he asked me to marry him, he agreed that I would go purchase the rings on my credit card, and when he came back 2 months later, he would pay the full bill. We later did break up, and we agreed that because he had one ring and I had the other ring, that he would pay half, and I also have an email saying that I will pay half. I don't have a problem with that, and here's the bill. But it's from a month ago, so there's still late payment charges on there. I haven't paid it. I have 3 children. I have more important bills to pay than a credit card bill.
Did you tell her to go buy 2 rings?
No, Your Honor. She bought the rings on her own.
It says, I will pay my half. I don't have a problem with that. Hope everything goes well with your new relationship. I wish you all the best. Did you send this to her?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Just a minute. You have 1 ring, correct?
Yes, I do.
Well, who's supposed to pay for that ring?
Well, she actually gave it to me as a gift, and she was asking me to pay for it.
Let me see it.
So the ring?
Yeah.
I didn't bring it, Your Honor. I forgot it.
Mr. Moten, you're really annoying me. I mean, you did get a copy of her counterclaim, did you not, about the ring?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Well, how could you not bring it if I wanted to look at it? How much was the ring that he has in his possession?
Here's the original bill.
That's what I want to see.
Okay. And then there's the interest and stuff incurred because he didn't pay the original bill, which we agreed that we would each split half of the bill last month.
All right. How much was his ring?
It was the less expensive one on there.
So his ring was $200?
I believe so.
You get to keep the computer, madam. And he owes you $200 for his ring. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Intuitive counselor Rosemary Guerra is suing her colleague, psychic Elizabeth Wines, for the return of money she paid for business leads.
Ms. Guerra, it is your claim that the defendant owes you for some sort of an investment that you made with her towards some future business. Each of you at least makes a living or an avocation of being a psychic.
Right.
And according to you, you gave Miss Wines some money. What did you give her money for?
I gave her $1,500 in reference to some promises she had made in order for us to work events like fashion shows, concerts, special events.
What was she supposed to do for the $1,500?
She was supposed to introduce me to her friend Stacy, that's supposed to put us into events in order for us to work as intuitive readers or psychics. And she had promised me a lot of different events and different parties, 38 events for this year, and that never materialized.
Miss Wines, what was the $1,500 for?
Leads.
Leads?
Leads for events.
And when did she give you the $1,500?
In February.
How long had you known Miss Guerra?
Well over 3 years.
And you told her that this $1,500 was to secure leads for her?
Correct. To take place in June.
How many leads did you give her?
We never got that far.
Just a minute. This is what we have. We have $1,500 given to you to provide her with leads for events. How many leads did you give her?
She would not talk to me to pick out the events.
Okay. So the answer is you gave her no leads.
Absolutely none.
Then you have to give her money back. Your contract is she gave you the money to give her leads. You didn't give her any leads. She gets her money back.
She needed to pick the events. Not all the events are appropriate for psychic.
Show me any correspondence that you have between February and June asking her to pick out the events for the $1,500.
When I contacted her in April, or we mean when the producer contacted her in May, asking her to work the events, and she refused. Is that what you say?
That's hearsay. You have to give her back her money, Miss
Okay.
Wines. You have to stop whining and give her back her money. Do you understand? You didn't provide the service for which the $1,500 was designed. You didn't perform the service. Maybe you'll do it sometime in the future. Maybe you can all sit down and figure that out. But right now, you didn't provide her with what she contracted for. So you have to give our money back. It's very simple, right? Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,500.
Parties are excused when they step out.
Norma Villa says her sister, Alicia Vasquez, owes for car payments, car repairs, and money loans.
Ms. Villa, the defendant is your sister.
That's correct.
And some time ago, she needed a car. You agreed to take out a loan in your name.
That is correct, Your Honor.
What kind of car did she buy?
It was a 99 volts Jetta.
How much was the loan?
For $11,809, I believe.
So that was very nice of your sister. When did she take out the loan for you?
In 2003 of June.
And you made the payments on the loan?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Until when?
Until March of 2005.
What happened in March of 2005?
I lost my job, and I was fighting an appeal for unemployment, and so I couldn't make the payments after in April and May.
That's what your lawsuit wants?
Yes.
April and May's car payment, as well as a substantial amount of money because you claimed that your sister abandoned the car and destroyed it.
Yes, ma'am.
Caused a lot of damage to the car, cost you $2,000 to put the car back into shape. You are now driving the car and paying it off.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You acknowledge that you didn't make April and May's car payment?
Yes, ma'am.
So you acknowledge that you owe that to your sister because somebody had to make it?
No, ma'am. What happened was I didn't have money to pay April and May, and she said that she would either try to help me or that if she couldn't help me in any way, then to go ahead and take the tires, because I kept telling her, what about my rims? And she said, if I can't help you, if you can't make the payment, then fork it. You know, I don't have money. And she said, I don't have money or anything, so go ahead and take the rims off.
Miss Vasquez, somebody paid April and May's car payment. It was not you.
Well, Your Honor, what happened was she didn't pay the April and May payment. Actually, she told me that the bank had reported the car stolen. So I lived with my mom.
Somebody has now made April and May's car payment if she's driving the car.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Who had the car in April?
I had the car in April.
Who had the car in May?
I did, ma'am. But
Just
I also...
a second. Listen to me. If you had the car in April and drove it, and you had the car in May and drove it, why should anybody else make the car payment for you? That was not your agreement with your sister.
Right, ma'am, but see, what happened was we were waiting for an appeal to go through for my unemployment so I can pay those payments.
I don't give a rat's behind about your appeal for unemployment. I asked you a very simple question. The very simple question was, if you drove the car in April and you drove the car in May, who should pay for the car?
Well, I should have paid for the car.
That's the answer. You drove it. You pay for it.
Well, now she's driving the car, so...
She's not asking you for anything else.
But I put a down payment on the vehicle, which was $800.
In 2003?
Yes, ma'am. But I already paid $6,000 on the vehicle.
How much a month did you pay for the car?
I paid $328 a month.
And how much do you think it would cost you to rent a car?
I have no idea, ma'am.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a homemaker now, ma'am.
Who supports you?
Unemployment.
How many children do you support?
I support 2.
Do they live with you?
One of them does.
Where does the other one live?
With his dad.
And who else lives in your home?
My husband.
And what does he do for a living?
He's unemployed.
Why?
Because it's been hard for him to find a job because he doesn't have documents.
Well, yes, you always ask one question too many. Do you have documents?
Yes, ma'am. I'm a U.S. citizen.
Then you have to work.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. And take care of your baby.
That's what he did.
Good. But you both can't stay home?
Right. Now, well, I just
then stick your sister with your car payment, because if you're both not working, you don't even need a car. If you're sitting around doing nothing, then you don't need a car.
But we had made an agreement, because I had told her, we had made an agreement, me and her had made an agreement to where, because she knew that I couldn't make the payments, and she had agreed that she would wait for me to go to court and then go ahead and just pay the car payment even if it was late. We had made the agreement, me and her. That's incorrect, Your Honor.
Does not make any sense.
What do you do for a living, Miss Villa?
I'm a team manager for a well-known company.
And you have children?
I have 4.
You support them?
I do.
Do they live with you?
They do.
Anybody else live in your house other than your 4 children?
My husband.
Does he work?
Yes, he does.
What kind of work does he do?
He's a manager for a contracting company.
Makes a good living?
Yes, he does.
You own a home?
I own 2, ma'am.
Have mortgages?
Yes.
Have cars?
Yes.
Have car payments?
Yes.
See what I mean? That, Miss Vasquez, is the American dream.
Well, that's my American dream someday.
Do you understand? You can't stay home in your house,
right,
hoping the American dream will find you.
Right.
And you can't encumber anybody else with your problems.
I understand, ma'am, but I was fighting an appeal at the time, and that's
You
why...
already told me that 3 times. You don't visit that on your sister. Now, how much was each car payment?
They're $328 plus the late delinquency.
And what was the late fee?
I have a breakdown if you need that.
Yeah.
And then I have photos. I'm not sure if you need them, but they're the damages.
I want to see the damage that you allege to the car.
And the house that you see there in that photo is my defendant's witness's mom's house. So what a coincidence for that one.
You told us to leave the car there.
No. Be truthful. You just got
No.
sworn in.
Shh. Did you take the wheels off this car?
They're my tires. She told me that it was okay to do that,
The car was
ma'am.
not given to her like
She
that.
told me days before that there was insurance on the vehicle before she was mad and angry and did all this. And she told me I had told her, well, Norma, I haven't went to court yet for my unemployment to pay.
No, 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 no,
I'm
no,
being
no, no.
honest.
Listen, I want you to let her speak. Do you understand? Okay. And I don't want you to interrupt her again.
Okay.
Keep
and
going.
she told me that I told her to ask the bank if she can tell the bank that the money was, lost in the mail.
So you asked her,
yes,
to lie to the bank.
I asked her. Yes, ma'am.
That the check was in the mail.
Yes.
When it really wasn't in the mail.
Right.
So you lied. Mm-hmm. And you wanted her to lie.
And she did.
Just a second. And according to you, she lied for you.
Mm-hmm. She said that she was going to tell the bank that that it was lost in the mail, and by that time I should have my money to go, so I could go ahead and pay the payments with the late fee.
Okay. So you asked her to lie for you, and she did lie for you.
Right.
And then when it came time for you to send the money, you still didn't send it.
No, what happened was days after that, she said that the bank had reported the car stolen. And she called my mom. She wouldn't talk to me no more. She called my mom, and she told my mom the car was reported stolen. I'd be taken out by gunpoint and to leave the car. So I lived with my mom. She could have went and picked up. She didn't have to do all this. She could have went and picked the car up at my mom's house. The car was never moved again until that she told my sister-in-law on the phone to leave it somewhere where the police can find it, which I don't understand. And she had told me way before all this happened to take the rims off if she couldn't make the payment. That's the honest truth, Your Honor. That now for the inside is not damaged. What happened is I've had that car for 2 years. I do have a daughter, and the inside of the vehicle, of course, is going to get dirty, but it's not demolished.
Just because you have a daughter doesn't mean that a car has to look like this.
Well, it's the interior, ma'am. It's the interior. When my daughter, sometimes she got car sick, she'd throw up, and we would clean it with, when you clean the car, it stains.
Well, then let me ask you a question. Who's supposed to take care of that now that you no longer have the car?
Well, I would...
Just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
Who's supposed to take care of it? The bank?
I am.
Right! There you go! Now, my next question to you. This nothing is my responsibility. When you put new rims on the car, what did you do with the old ones?
The old rims stayed at the dealer where I got the tires at.
Well, that's your problem. Because if you put something new on the car that you wanted to take back, then it was your responsibility to put back the original ones.
But my sister told me to do that. She told
I
me
don't
to take
believe you. She's a responsible, reliable person who has a job, and she has a husband who is employed, and she supports a household with 4 children, and she has 2 homes and 2 mortgages and car payments of her own, and she doesn't seem to be making excuses that not anything is my fault.
I'm not saying nothing's
Pay
my fault.
careful attention.
Yes, ma'am.
If you take out a radio and you put in a more expensive one, and then you have to send back the car to the company because you can't afford it, you don't leave it with no radio. You put back the original one. You don't leave it like this.
She told me to leave it like that,
I don't believe you.
She told me to leave the car on brakes and to take my rims off of it. Honest to truth. Tell
Makes
her.
sense.
Tell the truth.
Makes sense.
Tell the truth, sis.
No, just don't speak to each other. I don't believe that she said it to you. Even if she did say it to you, then, if you're a grown-up, you say, look, I've had this car for 2 years. If I can't get the wheels that were originally on the car, I'm just going to have to take the loss and leave the ones that are on the car because somebody is going to be penalized for this. It's not going to be you because your name isn't anywhere on the paperwork. It's got to be the person whose name is on the paperwork. That's her.
That's probably why she told me there was insurance on the car and to do that.
Listen, I want you to get a copy of my book. It's a book that I wrote a long time ago. Beauty fades, dumb is forever. I'm trying to educate you.
Yes, ma'am.
You won't let it happen. When you do things in life, you're supposed to accept responsibility.
I accept the responsibility that I took the tires. Because
you accept responsibility that you took the tires, but you don't want to pay for it. That's the responsibility. You said, of course I took them.
Well, I did a down payment on the car. I put $800 in the car. She's driving the car. She's saying that it was demolished, that it didn't work. I mean,
Madam,
that doesn't make any sense.
Listen to me.
That should cover my $800.
When you buy a car, any car, new or used, as soon as you drive the car out of a showroom, it depreciates. Do you understand that? That requires a simple yes or no.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you put $800 down on the car and you drove the car out of the showroom, you lost your $800. Do I make myself clear?
Mm-hmm.
You don't get that back. Your car didn't appreciate in value because your daughter vomited on the back seat. Do I make myself clear?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, now let's get to this $315 rent check.
She was in the process of getting evicted, and she needed money. She couldn't get any money
This is
from
in
anywhere.
April. This is when she stopped paying for the car as well, in April.
Correct.
Well, tell me about it.
I didn't want her to lose a roof over her head. And
Tell me about the conversation. Where did it take place?
She called me and asked me over the phone at work and asked me if I can please lend her the money. Her husband's going to get work or she's going to get unemployment or whatever the case is. Can I please lend her $315 so that she can pay the eviction so that they won't evict her?
Okay,
But
she acknowledges that you gave her that money. When did you pay her back?
In June, when I got, I had to get on cash aid.
You went on welfare?
Yes, because I had to move, Your Honor, to Santa Rosa.
Welfare gave you a lump sum check?
No, they gave me like a cash aid.
For how much?
It was like $380 something.
And you took that whole $300 and gave it to your sister?
Yes, ma'am.
So what did you do for money?
I had to go stay with my mom temporarily, so the $80 that I had, that's in the food stamps that they had gave me.
Did she give you back the $300?
She didn't, Your Honor.
Of course not. It doesn't make sense that you got $380 from welfare, and after this major to-do that you had with your sister where you were annoyed with her about the car, and she said she may help you out with the payments, and you turned the car over to your sister, who was then very angry with you because the car was destroyed in the interior and didn't have any wheels at all and was up on blocks, that you paid her back the $300 that you owed her, saving only $80 for yourself. It doesn't make sense. You owe your sister $1,500. That's what you owe it reasonably to put the car back into condition and for this loan that you did not pay back. And I suggest that you and or your husband find some way of earning a living. You made a baby, you got to get a job. That's all.
Nancy Savage is suing the mother of her grandson, Melissa Balding, for bail money. Nancy says Melissa and her son were arrested on drug charges.
All right, everybody listen very carefully because this is a long saga to get to a simple question. Miss Savage, I assume this is your son.
Yes, it is.
This is his girlfriend.
Yes, it is.
Ex-girlfriend.
True.
They have a child together.
True.
She doesn't have custody of the child. He doesn't have custody of the child. One of your other children has custody of the child because both of these two people were, in somebody's opinion, not capable of taking care of this child. According to your complaint, some time ago, your son was driving your car with her in the car. When did that happen?
About a year ago, a little over a year ago.
Let's have a month.
April 30th, 2004.
He's not your only child, is he?
No.
Perfect. It's a perfect example of don't put all your eggs in one basket. When they got pulled over, there were drugs in the car.
Mm-hmm.
I assume, Miss Savage, that they didn't belong to you.
Right.
So the two of them got hauled into court and your car was impounded. According to you, you bailed out your son and Ms. Balding, and you want your bail money, which was how much?
$750.
You are to pay for the towing fees on the car and the impound fees.
The impound fees.
That she's not going to pay for because the Hulk over here was the one driving your car, right?
Yes.
And you gave him permission to drive your car, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
So I would suggest you get the impound and towing fees back from him. By the way, have you paid your mother back for your bail?
Yes, I have. Except for $50 of it.
What about the towing fees?
No, I haven't.
Where were the drugs found?
They were found behind the glove box, stashed.
Whose drugs were they?
They were his drugs.
Had you used drugs that day?
No.
Were you under the influence of drugs that day? Were you under the influence of alcohol that day?
That was possible.
What?
Yes, ma'am.
What time of the day was this?
Around 12 o'clock in the afternoon because I was laying out at my pool.
What time had you started drinking?
Around 12 o'clock.
He's shaking his head no. I tend to believe him. Were any charges ultimately brought against you?
Yes, ma'am.
For what?
That I'm not quite sure about them, but I have this paper right here stating that it was all dropped and dismissed.
Let me see that, please.
I have on the bail slip that I got her what her charges were.
Can I see that, please? Too?
And she has one more charge than my son was, which I believe is being under the influence. She admitted to the police that she had taken somas.
What is that?
It's a muscle relaxer. Not that day, but previous.
Now tell me about the call you received, Miss Savage, from the defendant about the bail.
First of all, one of their friends notified me that their car had been pulled over, so I went to where it was because it was less than a mile from my house. And I asked the officer if I could get my car, and he said no, there were drugs involved, and one of them was under the influence, and so they were going to impound it. So I asked him where my grandchild was, and the officer went over and asked Melissa, and she told him it was at her apartment. So I told him I would take responsibility and go get Brian and have him stay with me.
Who was watching him?
Some of their friends.
Go ahead.
So I went and brought my grandson home, and I was trying to calm him and everything. He was very upset.
How old is he?
2.5.
Go ahead.
I told him that Mommy and Daddy were having car problems, and when their car was fixed, that they would come and get him, and he told me that I should take him to where they were. So Melissa started calling. The first call, she was like, you have to get me out of here. I can't stay in here. You need to get me out. I'll do anything. Whatever it is, I'll pay you back. Just get me out. And that was the first of one of many calls. I probably got between 15 and 20 calls that night, and every time she called, she woke my grandson up. And
what about your son?
He called me once.
Did you go and bail him out?
I bailed both of them out.
No. He called you once?
Once.
When did you bail him out?
Steve got released around 2 o'clock that afternoon, and Melissa got released 8:30, 9 o'clock that morning because there was a woman in jail that Melissa had identified for another crime.
Oh, just a second. This incident happened at 12 noon.
No, the incident happened at like 10 o'clock that night that they were pulled over.
Yes. Oh, so she had been drinking from 12 noon until 10 o'clock at night, according to her. Oh, I didn't understand that. Now I understand. Okay, and during that whole time, she called you numerous times.
She called me about 15 to 20 times, and she told me that they wanted to test her for drugs and she wasn't going to give them a urine sample, and that when she had to go to the bathroom that she would have the girls in the waiting cell stand around her so they didn't know that she was urinating.
Step up. What happened to your case?
My case was dropped before hers was.
What kind of drugs were found in the car?
Marijuana, pills, and methamphetamines.
Whose were they?
Hers.
That's interesting. Not yours.
The marijuana was mine. I admitted to the cop when we were stopped. He asked if there were any drugs in the vehicle, and the marijuana was in my pocket. And I handed that to him, and he found the other drugs when he asked for my license and registration. When she opened the glove box door, he saw a container that everything else was in.
Who are you?
Her mother.
Step up. Why do you think your daughter didn't call you to bail her out?
Because I taught her not to call me and bail any of my children out until they have gone to their first preliminary hearing.
She was in Ohio.
Just a second.
They'll possibly lower the bail or drop the
What's your last name?
Daly.
Miss Daly, how many children do you have that have been arrested?
Oh, this one.
So when you said you've taught all your children not to call you until after they have had their first bail hearing, you were really referring just to her?
No, I raised 4 daughters as a single parent.
Yes.
And I worked in law enforcement for 30 years.
Yes.
And I just informed them that if they got into a situation where they ended up in jail, I would hope this wouldn't happen, but I just wanted to make sure that they knew what to do.
How many years have you spent in law enforcement?
All told, 20.
Between us, we have more than a half a century in law enforcement, Miss Daly. How many children do you have?
4.
Between us, we have 9 children. Did you ever have a conversation and tell your children, if you ever get arrested, make sure you wait until your first bail hearing because your bail will probably be lowered? Do you remember having that conversation when you told them about, don't talk to strangers, don't go near people's vans? You ever remember having that conversation with your 4 children?
Negative.
Me neither. So you want to go through this one more time with me? Because unless you're kooky, because I never heard of a mother, even in law enforcement, sitting her children down and saying, listen, never talk to strangers, be home at midnight, don't give any strangers your phone number, and if you ever get arrested, I want you to wait until your first bail hearing before you call me because your bail may be reduced. Were you happy to get out of jail?
Yes, ma'am.
Pay her the money. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $750. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Ashley Coggin says She loaned money to ex-boyfriend Daniel Piper so he could buy a 1990 Mustang. Ashley says Daniel has never paid her back.
Ms. Coggins, according to the complaint that I read, you and Mr. Piper lived together for a period of time.
Yes.
And you took out a loan.
Yes.
And the loan was to be primarily used for a car for you. What kind of a car did you buy?
1990 Mustang.
How much did you pay for it?
$3,200.
How much of a loan did you give him?
$4,500.
What'd you do with the rest?
Well, she got a portion of the money, approximately $300 to $400, and the rest of the money I used to plate the car and insure the car.
And then shortly after the loan, the two of you broke up.
Yes.
He made some payments on the loan and then stopped.
Yes.
You want him to pay the loan?
Yes.
Mr. Piper says that he was forced to sell the car, stop making the payments because you moved out of the apartment, leaving him with the lease and the bills. And he couldn't do everything, so he stopped making the car payments.
Well, I paid some payments. I did not.
How many payments did you make?
I believe 4.
And in what amount?
122 and some change.
Does that sound right?
I believe he made 4, but only $55 have been made since the payments were always late. And they were adding the interest and the payments were always late. He's only actually paid $55 on the loan.
Can I see your last statement, please?
Yes.
So I can look at it. Well, the balance is 4,445.20, but some of this is yours.
Right.
Well, let's say there's $4,000 left on the loan. Now, did you both sign a lease for this apartment?
Yes.
When did you sign the lease?
March of 2004.
And when did you move out?
I moved out July of 04.
Are you still in the apartment?
Yes.
What was the rent on the apartment?
$735 a month.
And what was your financial arrangement with regard to the rent?
I was supposed to pay all of the bills, the electric and the cable and the cell phone bills, and him and his brother were supposed to pay the rent. They were supposed to split it.
3 of you living there?
Yes.
Is that right?
My brother did move in, but we were not splitting the rent. That wasn't the agreement.
Yes, it was.
Why not?
Due to the fact my brother had just got back from the Navy, he was in a tight spot, he needed a place to live. I let him move in with us under the agreement that he would pay $200 a month.
Is he paying $200 a month?
Yes.
Then you're almost whole, sir. If the rent is $735, let him pay half the rent. He's not in a bind anymore.
I understand, but he's
Right.
also not on the lease.
I don't care whether he's on the lease or not. He's living there.
Yes.
I mean, your defense to this whole action with regard to the car is that she left you with the lease, which I would take into consideration, except for the fact that you moved your brother into the apartment and he can pay half the rent. I mean, he's a big boy.
Yeah, but what was I supposed to do when she left the lease, didn't have somebody else move in?
Listen to me very carefully.
Okay.
When you moved into the apartment together,
Mm-hmm.
the two of you, in March of '04, did your brother move in with you
Yes.
at the same time?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
With no agreement that he was to pay at least a third of the rent?
No. The agreement was $200.
Well, you better change the agreement, sir. Circumstances change. He's living there with you. Now, put your hand down. You sold the car.
Correct.
To?
Kid named John.
Did you put a sign in the window?
No, I didn't.
Well, how did you sell it?
The kid came to my mother's house where the car was parked in the backyard. He had them get a hold of me because he wanted to purchase the car.
You mean it was like Karnak? He said, oh, this must be a car that's for sale?
Well, the person that I bought the car from was friends with this kid. He was looking for that kind of car, so he came to me.
How much did he pay for the car?
How much did he pay for it?
That's my question, sir. It doesn't give you an opportunity to think about an answer.
I just
you should
didn't
know
hear
that.
you.
You should know that like that.
Yes,
Don't play with me.
He paid $1,100 for the car.
Why didn't you give that $1,100 to her?
Why would I give it to her?
Well, who's supposed to pay this loan?
Me.
But you haven't been doing that.
At that time, I was still paying the payment.
But then you stopped.
Correct.
So why didn't you give her the $1,100?
Because I was paying the loan at the time. It was.
But
up
then
to
you
date.
stopped.
The $1,100 by that point was gone. I mean, the situation I was in, I didn't
Who is this?
have. This is my girlfriend.
What is she here for?
Because she's been the one dealing with Ashley during this whole thing.
Why is she dealing with Ashley?
Because I
Because he
repeatedly,
refuses to talk to me.
I repeatedly asked her not to call me. If she needed to get a hold of me, I asked her to ask her mother to call me,
No,
to email
that's
me,
not true.
or
Oh,
to have.
I don't want to hear you unless I ask you a question.
I repeatedly asked
I'm
her
getting
not to call me.
frustrated with you, Mr. Piper.
Okay.
I'm getting frustrated with you, Mr. Piper. Somebody takes out a loan for you. You promise to pay them. You stop paying them. You sell the only equity that exists, which is your car.
Well, to tell you the truth, the car wasn't part of the loan.
Well, what was the loan for?
I'm saying there was no, that wasn't collateral on the loan or anything like that. Okay, this loan was just a personal loan. It wasn't a car loan.
I understand what it was, sir.
Okay.
She took out the loan to enable you to spend $3,200 plus tags and fees to buy a car.
Correct.
Of course I'm correct. You think you're smarter than I am?
No, ma'am.
On your smartest day. You're not as smart as I am on my worst day.
Okay.
What do you want?
I was wondering if I could say something.
Of course. I haven't had lunch.
Well, Danny was with Ashley throughout their whole high school career.
I don't give a, listen to me.
I
listen to me
understand that.
carefully. I don't give a rat's behind whether they were soulmates in utero.
Okay.
He took money from her.
I understand
listen,
that.
Try to be quiet and watch my mouth. He took money from her to buy a car. He stopped making payments on the car. He stopped making payments to her for the loan that she took out to enable him to buy a car. And then he has the gall to sell the car and not give her the proceeds.
She lived with Danny, was very unsatisfied with whatever Danny did. Left, did not pay any rent, didn't pay anything, asked him, oh, she is always in contact. Did you pay the rent? Did you pay this? Did you pay that? If you walked out, you are supposed to find someone to take your place. She did not do that. She left Danny with everything. Left him with the rent, the utilities. He had shut-off notices.
Listen to me.
A roof over his head is more important than a loan payment
When
that
my
she
mouth
should have
starts to move, yours is not moving. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Danny has a brother, a big, strong guy who served his country, who came back, and who now has a roof over his head, cable, gas, electric, rent. And these two boys have to manage to pay $735.
सर में बहुत तेज दर्द है ठीक है तो कैसे हैं आप लोग सभी भाई हो बहनों मेरे मित्रों दोस्तों मेरे चैनल को फाड़ दो तोड़ दो फोड़ दो बने मार दो बने बैठ जो छोड़ी जो दिमाग में क्या है दर्द हो रहा है दर्द ठीक है This is the yoga, it's like that. ये करो वो करो ये करो जय श्री राम 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 हरे 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 राम राम फॉलो करो शेयर करो लाइक करो टिक करो सब करो टिक करो ये बात करो ठीक है कॉपीराइट क्लेम नहीं चाहिए ठीक है कॉपीराइट क्लेम मन चाहिए कॉपीराइट क्लेम कौन चाहिए भाई कौन चाहिए दिल यो चाहिए दिल दीवाना भाई लोग नाम जय श्री राम